LVX777. Today we're going to continue with our fascinating book study, The Cosmic Doctrine. This will be session number 4. So, I hope that you're having a fantastic Saturday evening. And if you're like me, it's about to get even more fantastic. All right, so let's get started. Peace to everybody who is present. Peace, Natural Sistar. Good to see you. Monica Lawan, peace, peace. Kevin Wise, peace and greetings, my bro. MC Maestro, peace. Janae Owo, peace, peace. Richard Tracy, peace. Sunshine Chick, always good to see you. All right, let's get started. Let's get started. What a day. Let me tell you, I wasn't lying when I said that this was purging season, right? Purging season. And that does not necessarily just mean that you're cutting people off or getting folks out of your life. My Gnosis, peace, brother. Peace. I see you on the content hustle, man. Keep going, keep going. Check out my Gnosis. Check out his channel. He's got some great occult information. Aldin, peace, peace. Micah, peace. Ghost Panther 22, peace. But yeah, I wasn't kidding when I said this was purging season. This is the season of healing, and it's only going to get more intense for the next 2 months or so. This is the season of healing. It's more than just Pluto, more than just Mercury, right? We also got Uranus, right? All 3 of these planets are moving into zones and angles that are having a seriously volatile effect on the subconscious. And when I say volatile, I mean that things are moving and shaking, stirring up in the darkness. So this is the time for healing. There are a lot of people who are reaching out for healing, and there's a call to the healers to respond to that. Because for us healers, we heal ourselves when we heal others. Do you catch that? For us healers, we heal ourselves when we heal others. So even though this is a very trying time inside, make sure that if you can assist somebody, if you can, go ahead and do that. Because what you'll find is that reality is a reflection. We know this. And if reality is a reflection, if people are reaching out and you have the capacity to help, even just a little bit, and I'm not talking about no $5, $20, $500. I'm talking about with suffering, right? With suffering, if you can help based on the knowledge that you've gathered. And I also don't mean going out of your way to beat somebody on the head to try to understand what you understand, right? What I mean is that if you're in a position, act in that position. And what you'll find is that you're actually giving to yourself. You're actually giving to yourself. All right, so I hope that that's clear for those who are on the level. Yes, it's just you. Yes, this is a solo one-player game for sure. And what that means is all these people you meet, all these reflections out here are aspects of your unconscious mind, and you can't hide from that. Can't hide from that. You can build. It's okay to build. What's the word? Not barriers, boundaries. It's okay to build boundaries for sure, right? Build boundaries. But don't think that you can hide completely from humanity because you are a part of it, all right? All right, good talk. Let's get to chapter 15, the evolution of the first planetary form. Yo, this book is crazy. It is triggering something within me that I could not have predicted. For sure. I was talking to my cousin last night, just breaking this down. And it's really cool because what I've learned about this occult information is that for the most part, not entirely, but for the most part, the foundations are in the Vedas. They're in India, right? For sure. At least that's where we find it. Who knows who came up with it first? But we find the most complete collection in the Vedic side of things. And hell, looking into these rays and all this other stuff deeper, it also connects to the Vedic entities. Each one of these rays connects to an entity. But what I'm saying is that in the beginning, when it came to the Western world, when it came to the white man's world, it mostly branched off in two directions. One direction is the Golden Dawn, one direction is the Theosophical Society, right? And it continued on those two directions. My particular channel, my particular life path right now is to go down the Golden Dawn related path. So you'll see a lot of the authors that I read are Golden Dawn or Golden Dawn affiliated, right? Because it's a collection of information. They're talking about the same things, but it's the words and the terminologies and the connections that they're using, the symbols that they're using, that makes it distinct. The Theosophical side is on, the other. It's like Pepsi and Coke, right? Same stuff, it's just slightly different recipe. So my cousin has found himself down this Theosophical Society path. So we come together and we compare notes, and we really are talking about the same shit, from the Golden Dawn side to the Theosophical side. And what I'm saying is that I never thought that I'd get into the rays and the planes and this type of thing. I never thought I'd get into it, because I know that is all Theosophical Society. But this book has connected those two branches for me. And I see now that there is no difference. Both of them give multiple shout outs to the Vedic information if you know how to listen. Let's get on with the study. Hakeem Lamidi, peace. Lanny Alderdice, peace, peace. All right, I'm excited. Let's get it cracking. Energy Boost brought to you today by Nos. Y'all all right, man? Y'all feeling overwhelmed? Or are you balancing this properly? I messaged somebody after the last reading. My mind went off into a tangent after the last reading. Like I'm gonna keep it real honest with you. Big bad, super smart, all knowledgeable Travis Magus almost went into a damn panic attack off this information. I sat down and meditated, and I started going deeper and deeper into what she was talking about in the last book read, and I saw something that really gave me a spook. I had to stop my meditation, go outside, and light something up. You hear me? I had to sit on that thing for multiple days to really break this stuff down. This is some deep info. And here I am again, because I want some more of it. JD Temple, peace. All right, let's get to this. Chapter 15, Evolution of the First Planetary Form. In the previous lecture, the evolution of the divine sparks was traced. From the time wherein all those of the same type gathered themselves together and formed a group consciousness. We then traced the phases of the developments of these groups from one plane to another on each plane, adding a shell of the atoms of that plane to the concentric layers of atoms revolving about the nucleus of the original traveling atom, until finally upon the seventh plane, we find 7 shells about the central nucleus of the divine spark. Figure 16. Let's take a look at figure 16. All right, so remember that image? All right, take a good look at that. Hopefully you can see it, or if you have this book, you can go to page 218. Rock in peace. All right, notice all those layers right here on this final level. All right, let's get back to what she was talking about here. Ghost Panther says, invite Brother Panic to be here with us in this moment if he ain't got nothing to do. Ashe. Brother Panic has been present for all these book reads. He's on time, I'm not. All right. So like what you just said, in the previous lecture, the evolution of the divine sparks, remember the divine sparks from the center that are unconditioned, and they go out, they travel, they start to gain qualities depending on the phase that they pass through. Remember, the great entity is dreaming objective reality. She says that in the previous lecture, the evolution of the divine sparks was traced from the time wherein all of the same type gathered themselves together and formed a group consciousness. We then traced the phases of the developments of these groups from one plane to another on each plane, adding a shell of the atoms of that plane to the concentric layers of atoms revolving about the nucleus of the original traveling atom, until finally upon the seventh plane, we find 7 shells about the central nucleus of the divine spark. So the divine spark is going out and it forms a group consciousness. So there's multiple divine sparks in this group, right? And as this group passes through the different planes, it gains a layer, right? It gains a layer around it. And after it passes through each plane, it gathers another layer and another layer. The relationships of the seed atom, the traveling atom, and the 7 shells are complex and must receive further elucidation before we proceed. So we're about to break down these shells, these layers. Veronica Archaga, peace, good evening to you. Peace and love to you. The traveling atom is a projection, not of the logos. And remember, the logos is synonymous with the great entity. The traveling atom is a projection, not of the logos, but of the cosmos. Remember, the cosmos is greater, wider, more expansive than the logos. The traveling atom is a projection, not of the logos, but of the cosmos. It is thus, at the same time, more primitive and more closely related to the ultimate source of existence than a projection of the logos could be. Now, I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit and remind you of what Bobby Hemmett used to talk about, right? When there was talk of the demiurge or the false god, the talk was that the false god was jealous of the soul. Remember Bobby Hemmett talking about this? The false god was jealous of the human soul because the human soul was more ancient, more primordial, and more substantial than the false god. Just something to keep in mind. Your soul is older than God. Whoa. Right? The traveling atom is a projection, not of the logos, but of the cosmos. It is thus, at the same time, more primitive and more closely related to the ultimate source of existence than a projection of the logos could be. I don't know if you've ever studied the mythology of the Titans and how the Titans were the parents of the Olympians. The Olympians imprisoned their parents, cast them into Tartarus. My Gnosis says Greek Myths by Robert Graves. Yes. Veronica Archaga says, classes announced, please. I need to get back to business here. Yes. So we are officially starting the Cyclomancy class. It will open on the 5th. May the 5th be with you. May 5th. Cyclomancy and Shadow Work are revamped and reopening on May the 5th. So if you want to be a part of that, that's when it will begin. I'll give you more information all throughout the week. I won't shut up about it, but May the 5th. MC Maestro says, in the original Greek versions of the New Testament, the word at the start of the book of John is the Logos. Yes, yes. Revenge of the 5th. Thank you, MC Maestro. May the 4th be with you. Revenge of the 5th. Kevros SS God. Peace. Okay, so once again, the traveling atom is a projection not of the Logos, but of the cosmos. It is thus at the same time more primitive and more closely related to the ultimate source of existence than a projection of the Logos could be. The Logos projects the general framework of forces and phases which condition the universe as a whole. Why is that? Because the universe, as we see it, is a projection. It's a dream of the Logos. Remember that? The Logos projects the general framework of forces and phases which condition the universe as a whole. The cosmic atoms, which have come under the influence of the Logos, project the innumerable units which the logoidal concept binds into an aggregate. The cosmic atoms are really younger brethren of the Logos. You see that? The cosmic atoms are really younger brethren of the Logos. Because remember, the cosmic atoms come from the cosmos. They don't originate in the dream of the great entity. They're from the same place as the great entity. The cosmic atoms are really younger than the younger brethren of the Logos, cosmic units themselves that have not reached the development which the Logos has reached, but are of the same type. Therefore, each atom of a logoidal universe is, for this reason, a potential divinity. Now, I keep saying I'm jumping ahead, but yeah, because we're not talking about individual souls or objective reality or anything like that yet. But, you can put two and two together. Eventually, that's what this is going to become. But notice, what does the Bible say, and what does Bobby Hemmett constantly refer? Isn't it written that ye are gods? Right? Now, see, you thought it was some ego type stuff that you say to make yourself feel proud. But no, literally, your soul is a younger brethren of what you've come to know of as God. Literally. God is just older than you, just more evolved and shaped in its presentation. But you are made of we know this, right? You're made of the same stuff. It's like what Dion Fortune said in the mystical Kabbalah. When we talk about the archangels and the angels and how they are more advanced than humans, yet have less potential. It's a lot like comparing, a 3-year-old child to a 15-year-old dog. The 15-year-old dog has more wisdom, more knowledge, and is more evolved than that baby. However, once the child starts getting up in his age, it will quickly surpass the dog. It's like that with the angels and with the human soul. Anna Molly, peace. Good evening. Good evening. All right, so therefore each atom of a logoidal universe is, for this reason, a potential divinity. Remember now that movement is the basis of all things, right? Movement is the basis of all things. We talked about how that motion goes out, and even though the perception of that motion stops, the motion itself will never stop. In fact, it's more than likely going to align itself with a more solidified motion. Isn't that what happened when we pray to these gods or work with certain deities? Certain gods and certain deities, certain mantras are motions in the universe that have existed for an extremely long time. And when we do rituals, we're aligning our motion with their motion. We kind of get into the wake of their movement, so to speak, which is why we start to have the effects of working with that deity, right? If you work with a money spirit, you're going to get money results because you've aligned yourself with the motion of that spirit. You see how that works? Remember now that movement is the basis of all things. Abstract movements, which are opposed, locked up force, and render it static, fixed. Okay, abstract movements, which are opposed, lock up force and render it static, fixed. It is these locked up forces which become form. A form is simply a force which is not free to move. Let that one sink in. A form is simply a force which is not free to move. Doesn't our science tell us that everything is energy? Energy in some rate of vibration? A form is simply a force which is not free to move. Any series of changes which are completely compensatory settle down into a cycle of action and reaction. Right? Any series of changes which are completely compensatory settle down into a cycle of action and reaction. In other words, if you push something, it's going to be pushed. And hell, it might push back, right? Now you got this pendulum effect. He's talking about the principle of rhythm right here. Any series of changes which are completely compensatory settle down into a cycle of action and reaction. As soon as such a cycle is established, it cannot change its mode of motion, and therefore a force is locked up. You see how the force becomes a form now? It gets locked into a pattern. As soon as such a cycle is established, it cannot change its mode of motion, and therefore a force is locked up. Not in a motionless point, but in a spinning ring. The points are units. The rings are organisms. We get into objective reality now. Now we're getting to objective reality. Basic instruction before leaving Earth. As soon as a cycle is established, it cannot change its mode of motion, and therefore a force is locked up, but not in a motionless point, but in a spinning ring. The points are units. Isn't it funny how all these galaxies are shaped in these spirals, spinning round and round and round? Isn't it curious how every thing in space is spinning around in a spiral? Star Lion, peace. Metaphysical Osama K, peace. Either a unit or a ring, when once established, remember the points are units. The rings are organisms. Either a unit or a ring, when once established, can move as a whole, and when this movement of an object takes place, there are two factors present: the object which moves and the movement it makes. Okay? The movements, apart from the object, is of the same nature as the movement which gave rise to the object. The movement, apart from the object, is of the same nature as the movement which gave rise to the object. Why am I highlighting this? Why does that simple ass line, why is that getting a highlight? Why am I reading it over and over? Can you look at this and understand this and connect it to your spiritual practice, to your meditations, to your study, to your manifestations, to all the different things that you do, to the results that you've gotten, to the failures, to the repeated patterns that are happening in your life? Can you connect all these different things that have already happened to you to this information? Right? So either a unit or a ring, when once established, can move as a whole. And when this movement of an object takes place, there are two factors present: the object which moves and the movement it makes. The movement, apart from the object, is of the same nature as the movement which gave rise to the object. I've said many times, right? The metaphor that I use for this kind of thinking is every move that you make, every action, every thought, every word is a seed, right? And when you plant that seed, you can only grow what you planted. So if you make a move out of fear, you're gonna grow more of that, right? If you make a move out of confidence, you're gonna grow more of that. That's key when it comes to listening to your intuition versus the ego. So say there's a situation and your intuition is saying, move forward, right? You then, if you move forward based on that, you have planted a seed of faith and trust in your higher self. So you're going to grow more of that. But if your ego says, nah, let's get out of here. Nah, we can't do that. I remember what happened last time, or what happened to so-and-so, or what happened, right? If that's the seed that you plant and you make that move, you're going to reap more of that, right? You've planted that. Listen, the movement apart from the object is of the same nature as the movement which gave rise to the object. Whenever you get an uncoordinated movement, such as the tangential movement of the atoms before they are coordinated, there is permanency of rhythms, and therefore no form is created. But as soon as compensatory coordination is established, forms of abstract movement are built. My gnosis says, crazy thing is, back in October, I grabbed a sigil out of the dream realm, and it's the same figure in this book with the tangential angles and spirals. Man. I think a few of us were already sitting in this information. Hazard Pie, hot and fresh out the grease. Hazard Pie says, actions growing character traits that will impact your life. So when you get an uncoordinated movement, right? Uncoordinated is kind of chaos, right? Another word is chaos. Whenever you get an uncoordinated movement, such as the tangential movement of atoms, before they are coordinated, order, right? Chaos and order, right? The two potentialities in existence, so-called chaos and so-called order. Sunshine Chick says the Emmy statue's holding the ring cosmos. Dang. Interesting. Whenever you get an uncoordinated movement, chaos, such as the tangential movement of atoms before they are coordinated, there is permanency of rhythms. So look at that. There's a permanency in rhythm, permanency of rhythm in chaos. And therefore no form is created. But as soon as compensatory coordination is established, forms of abstract movement are built. In other words, when she says compensatory, right? Think about the word compensate. Compensate. That's when there is somewhat of a balance of movement that causes it to repeat, right? In other words, like I said, if you turn the wheel, that motion is going to keep going, and it's going to cause it to turn even easier and easier and easier, right? It's locked into a self-perpetuating cycle now. That's what order is. That's what form is. Versus chaos, when it's just like, you know, it's very difficult to see a pattern, but there is rhythm. You follow so far? So this is chaos versus order. Order is when that chaos is coordinated and locked into a cycle and becomes a manifestation. So look, this principle applies to many considerations and is therefore elaborated here in order that it may be available for future reference. And when the abstract archetypes of anything are referred to, you will know that it is the replica of a rhythm that is impacted on another plane as a vibration, which is referred to. This is the key to the nature of memory. And she's going to get into this thing about memory. which is literally just the repeated patterns of existence. This principle applies to many considerations and is therefore elaborated here in order that it may be available for future reference. And when the abstract archetypes of anything are referred to, right? When the abstract archetypes of anything are referred to, you will know that it is this replica of a rhythm that is impacted on another plane as a vibration which is referred to. So when you look at these tarot cards and you're seeing these archetypes on the major arcana, the Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, the Empress, the Emperor, right? So on and so forth, Death, the Hermit, Temperance, all these are archetypes. And what are those archetypes? Those archetypes, those images are a replica of a rhythm that is happening on another plane, right? So we see that rhythm. We see that rhythm that's happening on another plane, and we cast it into a form. That's how tarot works. So before proceeding further with the study of the evolution of the divine sparks, we will refer to the evolution of the archetypes of the globes or satellites whose origin has been described. Kevros SS God says, that was me today. My intuition was to say hi to this old friend, but my ego was like, no, remember what happened that one time. MC Macho says, had some like that last night, but gave into the ego. It takes practice in order to listen to that level of the intuition. And I'm telling you, once you start doing it and start choosing it over ego, it gets easier and easier. And it's just like what she's talking about here. Once you start that motion, it gets easier and easier. It gets locked into a form. So now instead of getting locked into a pattern of following the ego as a slave, you get locked into the pattern of coordinating with the higher self, with intuition, right? You're becoming more sensitive. The fact that you're even able to acknowledge that and realize it, like before I said anything about that, you already acknowledged that such a thing happened and you felt some kind of way about it. That shows evolution, right? So keep going. Next time something like that happens, listen to the intuition. Not because of the reaction, but because of the habit of listening to your intuition, right? Damn what they're going to do. Who cares? It's about you learning to make the right moves. And if every move is a seed planted, you want to make sure that you're planting seeds of what you're trying to eat from that garden, right? I'm trying to eat a garden full of higher self intuition. No more ego, no more GMO ego, no more EGO. I'm telling you, the more you do it, the easier it gets and the better it gets. You'll soon see. But anyways, so we were talking about order versus chaos, right? We were talking about uncoordinated versus coordinated movements. Okay, so we're talking about the archetypes, right? The abstract archetypes. So let's talk about the evolution of these archetypes. The unifying of the divine sparks into a group consciousness gave rise, right? We talked about the group soul, as aforesaid, to the organization of their attendant atoms into corresponding geometrical form. After the dispersal of the atoms, the archetypal form remains. So remember, the atoms are moving to and fro and everywhere, right? After the dispersal of the atoms, the archetypal form remains, according to the law above described. This form is a miniature reflection of the Logos under that aspect in which it is presented to its universe, that is to say, a system of stresses. All right, so we got these divine sparks, right? And they clump together into group souls. Now, of course, these divine sparks are all coming from the pure center, but as they're traveling through all the different zones and the rays and the planes, they're picking up habits and qualities. They're behaving in certain manners. So here's the thing, the all is the all. It will always be the all. And as the all dreams reality into existence and it's observing the different parts of itself, it is seeing that some of these divine sparks come together and behave in a certain way. And even after these divine sparks move on to their different destinations, What they formed, that group soul, it leaves an imprint. It leaves an imprint. I'll put it like this. The lore of Fortnite, the reason why Fortnite has like all these characters from other games and pop culture and stuff, is because those are actually the imprint of that individual in the Fortnite world, right? So maybe perhaps the black hole of Fortnite pulled in Darth Vader, right? He did his thing, he won a match, and then it let him go. But the imprint remains. So like the island is full of imprints from the multiverses across reality. In the same way, these divine sparks that come together and behave in a particular pattern, that forms an archetype. It leaves an imprint. And even though those atoms leave and go on about the rest of their evolution, their imprint remains in that group soul, right? So she said, to the organization of their attendant atoms into corresponding geometrical form. After the dispersal of the atoms, the archetypal form remains, according to the law above described. This form is a miniature reflection of the logos. And just like when you look in the mirror, you can't see the back of your head, you can only see a portion of yourself. Likewise, the reflection of the logos is a reflection of the portion of the logos. So this form is a miniature reflection of the logos under that aspect in which it is presented to its universe. That is to say, a system of stresses. This system of stresses organizes the atoms of the plane of which it is into its framework. And this equips itself with a definite form. There will then exist, in addition to the evolutionary swarm of divine sparks, a planetary spirit. Uh-oh. We talked about those planetary spirits the other night, right? Those who are listening. This system of stresses organizes the atoms of the plane of which it is into its framework. And this equips itself with a definite form. There will then exist, in addition to the evolutionary swarm of divine sparks, a planetary spirit, in earlier edition, planetary being, with a spherical body, built upon a framework of stresses. And this planetary spirit will be profoundly imbued with the type of activity and organization that was characteristic of the swarm of the divine sparks during that phase of this evolution when they occupied its sphere. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. So now we're talking about these planetary spirits who perform and behave in a very specific way based on the type of activity that was going on during its organization, during its evolution, when it had those divine sparks inhabiting it. I wonder what direction we're going. Toward the sun or away from it. When the next swarm comes to this phase, they find that their evolution has to take place in relation to the planetary spirit, which is the lord of that sphere, because it is the dominating influence thereon. They will, therefore, find ready-made the conditions which their predecessors had to evolve, and they will start there from upon their own evolution. They will start therefrom upon their own evolution. I got you here, Sunshine Chick. I was so caught up with the highlighting. Peace, Mike's Art. Mike's Art says the order of the elements starts as chaos, and then by the time it reaches the earth element, order has been manifested. Yep, locked into that pattern. Remember previously when she talked about the satellite being formed, and all the little units of light, sparks of light within the satellite itself, and how the units, the sparks of light on that satellite were aware of the great entity. They were aware of this higher being, higher consciousness, but the planetary spirit itself was not aware of it directly. The planetary spirit was aware that its sparks were aware of this great entity. Remember that? Let me read this again. When the next swarm, right? Okay, so also, with that being said, also remember that when these atoms that are going in their own direction, the ones that actually eventually became a satellite, there were the rogue atoms, right? The independent atoms, the ones that didn't belong to any place yet. As they move out through existence, they carve a path. Remember when she talked about initiation, right? These atoms that go from the center all the way out to the ring past knot and bounce off and come back, right? And how that outgoing path can be seen as a path of initiation, because eventually other atoms will follow in that same track that was carved into space. And as it's following through that track, it's going to pick up the same lessons. It's going to pick up the same qualities. It's going to pick up the same habit patterns and conditions that the original rogue atoms learned on its travels. And on its way back, it serves to give information to the new ones that are going forward. So it accelerates the process. And as this is happening, the great entity is like, whoa, this is new. Let me pay attention to this. So look what she says here. When the next swarm comes to this phase, they find that their evolution has to take place in relation to the planetary spirit, right? When the next swarm comes to this phase, they find that their evolution has to take place in relation to the planetary spirit, which is the Lord of that sphere, because it is the dominating influence thereon. There have been swarms of consciousness that already inhabited the planet that we live on, Earth. They've already gone through the whole shebang. And they left clues, they left process, they left initiation for us. Not carved in stone, but carved in the etheric. This is energetic. This is not objective. This is deeper than what you're going to find buried in the sands of the Middle East. When the next swarm comes to this phase, they find that their evolution has to take place in relation to the planetary spirit, which is the Lord of that sphere, because it is the dominating influence thereon. What's the dominating influence of planet Earth? Perhaps we've already reached this technological age many times before. And in order to go past it, we have to get back here and build more, build further. They will therefore find ready-made the conditions which their predecessors had to evolve. And they will start there from upon their own evolution. That's what I'm saying. Perhaps we've already been to this specific point of our evolution. We'll say with AI and technology and computers and phones. Maybe we've already been here. And maybe we didn't go much further than that and had to start over and try again. Isn't that evolution? Gradually expanding more and more. Each one being equipped with a shell of the matter of that plane will, from this basis, proceed to gather about it a shell of the matter of the next plane. For remember that although in the cosmos the planes are extended in space, being based upon movement, in a universe the atoms or the planes are not extended in space, being the products of an image held in consciousness, but are differentiated in type. Yo! So let that help you understand how the astral plane works. right? See, in the physical plane, in the objective reality, you have to get up off your butt, walk into the kitchen, make something to eat, right? Walk to the table, sit down and eat it. Walk to the trash to throw your trash away. Walk to the sink to wash your dishes. Walk back to the TV so you can watch Netflix and chill. But on the astral plane, it isn't extended in space. It's an image, which is why you think yourself there, which is why when you meditate on a certain thing, you pull in those qualities. You bring your consciousness there. That's the difference from the objective reality and the subjective reality. The product of an image. I never heard it put down like that. I never heard it put down like that. Each one being equipped with a shell of the matter of that plane will, from this basis, proceed to gather about it a shell of the matter of the next plane. Evolution of the elements. For remember that although in the cosmos the planes are extended in space, being based upon movement, that's the cosmos. Within a cosmos is a universe, right? In a universe, the atoms of the planes are not extended in space, being the products of an image held in consciousness, but are differentiated in type. It will thus be seen that the divine sparks do not have to change their place in space in order to gather atoms of another type about them, because atoms of all types are everywhere. But they merely have to change their mode of motion in order to produce a type of movement in which the atoms of another plane can take part. Are y'all able to relate that to your direct experience? Everything is everywhere. Well, no, Trav, before I do this thing that I really want to do in life, I have to get here first. I have to do this first. I have to be this first. I have to achieve this first. In order for me to have peace, I gotta have peace first. No. You flip that switch and you bring it to you. You go there first. Inside. Then you'll gather the correspondence on the outside. Isn't that how it works? Have you ever made up your mind to go in a different direction and then you found yourself in that different direction? It will thus be seen that the divine sparks do not have to change. Who's a divine spark, right? It will thus be seen that the divine sparks do not have to change their place in space. You don't have to change your place in space in order to gather atoms of another type about them, right? Whether you're working with Gibora energy or Chesed energy, right? You don't have to change your place in space in order to gather the atoms of another type about them, because atoms of all types are everywhere. Don't we call that the Akash? But they merely have to change their mode of motion in order to produce a type of movement in which the atoms of another plane can take part. So when you think about that lifestyle that you want to have, when you think about what you're trying to manifest, are you moving in that mode of motion so that the atoms of that plane that you're trying to manifest can take part? Are you doing that? Now I'm starting to see why it's so important to focus only on the vision and not at all on the bullshit, not at all at what these other folks are doing and how much it's pissing you off and the complaints and the conspiracy. None of that deserves your energy, because you have to focus all of it on what you're manifesting. It's making sense to me. Whenever the coordination of movements takes place, which changes a static unit into a spinning ring, right? Whenever the coordination of movements, remember coordination is order. Whenever the coordination of movements takes place, which changes a static unit into a spinning ring of cyclical rhythm, such a change takes place, and a cyclic rhythm always gathers about itself atoms of the plane below its own, because its movement approximates to theirs. So is that why the stirring of energy comes first? And you begin to see objects moving in that same motion. A cyclic rhythm always gathers about itself atoms of the plane below its own. Why? Because its movement approximates to theirs. For instance, as soon as a prime atom moves along a tangential path, it becomes a tangential atom, right? As soon as a prime atom moves along a tangential path, it becomes a tangential atom, right? Because it's gone through that path. But supposing an organization of prime atoms moved along a tangential path, they would form a tangential molecule. And being larger than tangential atoms would form a center of attraction for those atoms and would collect a shell of attracted atoms about them. This is how all shells are built. Right? So there's a difference between one atom, because remember what she said, the paths that the original atoms carve out through existence, they stay there. That motion stays there. And if another wandering atom that doesn't really have too many qualities is attracted to that path, it comes into alignment with that path and follows it and carves it deeper. What she's saying here now is that when a group or a collection of atoms are attracted to that path, they now become the same thing, but on a more complex scale. And because it's on a more complex scale, it now is starting to attract harder and stronger than it was when a singular atom flowed through that path. Starline says, endless possibilities, multiverse. You're already that which you want to be like. Panic used to say you just got to pull that shit into this realm. Absolutely. So that is how all the shells are built, right? Figure 12. Just real quick, let's look at figure 12. See what's going on there. All right, which one of these is figure 12? 11, so 9, 11, 12, 13. I don't know about that. I guess that's figure 12. Well, this one's figure 11. Wicked prime simple composite in relation to the planes, 12 nuclear atoms. All right. That didn't help me too much, but the images here are meant to train the mind, not to inform it. Aldin says, this is reminding me of Samkhya Darshan. QAmp74 says, what are you drinking? You are focused on the wrong thing. You might as well keep swiping. All this hot butter, and you're worried about what I'm sipping on. Dead giveaway. Dead giveaway. To return, however, to the evolution of a planetary spirit, it will possess, to begin with, merely an organized sphere of the atoms of the plane on which it originated. And when the new evolutionary swarm of divine sparks reach it, they would find themselves with seventh plane bodies on the seventh plane planet. To return, however, to the evolution of a planetary spirit, it will possess, to begin with, merely an organized sphere of the atoms of the plane on which it originated. Okay? So it's going to begin with an organized sphere of the atoms of the plane which it originated. And when the new evolutionary swarm of divine sparks reach it, right? So when the new sparks come through to possess that planet, they would find themselves with the seventh plane bodies on the seventh plane planet. But in the course of their evolution in that planet, they will build themselves sixth plane shells. Because it's already been through that path. They will build themselves sixth plane shells, and they will coordinate their consciousness of these shells into a group consciousness. And when they depart on their evolutionary journey, they will leave this group consciousness as an archetypal form in the consciousness of the planetary spirit. And this archetypal form will gather sixth plane atoms along its line of force. And the planetary spirit will now have two bodies because they are organized. All right, did y'all get that one? Did y'all get that one? MC Maestro said a hippie dude really read that paragraph in the 60s and said, I got this. All right, let's run it back again. I personally don't mind running it back. Maybe some of y'all do. Maybe some of y'all get it right away and you just want to keep going. I like to kind of just make sure that we're on the same page as much as possible. So we're talking about, right, first, because she's listing the things you have to know in order to understand what's next, right? You have to know that these planetary spirits, right, the spirit comes before the object, right? The motion comes before the object. There's also a lot of talk here about how as an atom moves through this quantum space, the cosmos, it carves a pattern, right? It carves a pathway. And any other wandering atom that gets close to it falls into that pathway. It's a stream carved out through space, right? These are just things to know to understand this. And when these pure, unconditioned atoms kind of travel through space in a group, looking for where they resonate, looking for where they can kind of stop and evolve, some of them come across these planetary spirits and they stop there. And they evolve with the planet. They evolve with the planet. And as she was saying just a paragraph before, any of these atoms that are moving through a path, as a group, they develop a sense of gravity, right? They develop a sense of gravity and they attract more to themselves. They create a shell. They create a shell. And what did she say earlier? Like, go 2 paragraphs ahead. She says, and a cyclic rhythm always gathers about itself atoms of the plane below its own because its movement approximates to theirs. So check it out. If a group of atoms develops this spiritual gravity and it's moving through this planetary spirit, that movement is cyclical. And you can say that after they've mastered the body that they're on, they'll start to develop a body on the lower plane. Because the rhythm that they've been locked into, remember that the locked into rhythm creates a form? That locked into rhythm is going to align with movement on the lower dimension, right? Because it's downgrading, not downgrading, but it's going from being a force into a form. The vibration is literally slowing down. So I'll read this again. To return, however, to the evolution of a planetary spirit, it will possess, to begin with, merely an organized sphere of the atoms on the plane on which it originated. And when the new evolutionary swarm of divine sparks reach it, right, when the new class comes in, they will find themselves with seventh plane bodies on the seventh plane planet, because the previous souls created that already and left it there. So the new souls come in, inhabit, and continue. But in the course of their evolution in that planet, they will build themselves sixth plane shells, and they will coordinate their consciousness of these shells into a group consciousness. So now there are two group consciousness, one on the higher level of the seventh, one on the lower level of the sixth. And when they depart on their evolutionary journey, right, when that class leaves, they will leave this group consciousness as an archetypal form in the consciousness of the planetary spirit. So look, the planetary spirit, every time it has these group souls come and go, they leave an archetype based on their lessons and their gathered collected experiences and all that stuff, right? And this archetypal form will gather sixth plane atoms along its line of force, and the planetary spirit will now have two bodies because they are organized. The real David Goodlow. Peace, bro, peace. David Goodlow says, what a coincidence. I'm reading this book now and wanted to review what you read a year ago, and I discovered you're doing this reading again. Yeah, this is powerful stuff, man. Powerful stuff. How far along are you in this? All right, so yeah, hopefully everybody's on the same page here. So this process is repeated with each fresh phase of evolution until each planetary spirit has achieved its full complement of bodies and is therefore able to take a swarm through the full circuit of evolution. So look, these planet people, remember how people say, oh, Earth, I believe that Earth is a school. Every planet is a school. And when you go there, you learn lessons and you graduate and move to the next, right? Well, maybe there's something to that, right? Look what she says. This process is repeated with each fresh phase of evolution until each planetary spirit has achieved its full complement of bodies and is therefore able to take a swarm through the full circuit of evolution. But as each planetary spirit is profoundly imbued with a type of activity which the swarm was engaged upon when its form was a building, right? But as each planetary spirit is profoundly imbued with the type of activity which the swarm was engaged upon when its form was building, each planetary spirit represents a different phase in its evolution, right? And it all depends on what the spirits that occupied that planet were doing on a consistent basis. We're talking about etheric patterns. We're talking about the morphogenetic field. We're talking about the collective unconscious of different species. Like, this is what she's breaking down here. MC Maestro says, sounds like William Gray's description of Metatron. Hell yeah, it does. And also, MC Maestro, I wonder if what she's saying here adds anything to, or at least resonates with, what you were considering with planetary spirits, right? I wonder if working with the planetary spirit of, say, Bethor, Phalag, Eraton, I wonder if working with them will unveil some of these archetypes that belonged to their stages of evolution, and how could those archetypes influence, impact, or affect what's happening on Gaia. And I wonder how much of that information some of us are already accessing, but we just don't realize what it is. Anyways, let's continue. So, each planetary spirit is profoundly imbued with a type of activity which the swarm was engaged upon when its form was a building. Each planetary spirit represents a different phase in evolution. They are, therefore, all different in character, and the evolutions conducted exclusively upon them have each a corresponding dominant note. And you know what? I'm going to say this also. The planetary spirit of Earth is pretty well defined, right? I said Gaia. Well, that name, that word Gaia, comes from mythology. And what is the characteristic of her? What was Gaia known for? Does anybody know? I tell you what, I mentioned Uranus. He couldn't keep his stuff to himself. She was pregnant every day, all day. And she was pumping out creatures of all types, all the time. Does anybody know the mythology of the Titans? Uranus, Gaia, her children, the Hekatonchires, her children, the Cyclops, her children, the Titans. What's the story of Gaia? What is her planetary spirit? What is she good at? What did she excel at? Hell, maybe planet Earth is the planet where this is the sex capital of the universe. It's gotta be. It's gotta be. Maybe that's why so many people love to incarnate here. Right. My notes says sexy red, right? I saw that clip. That is the wholly defining factor of this planet, I guess. MC Maestro said, no wonder why Diddy came here. Man. That's beautiful and all, but... And maybe that's why it serves to be so distracting. But that's another discussion and something for you to think about. Mother Earth. She's a mother, for God's sake. She's pregnant all the time, right? Somebody rockin', knockin' the boots. This is the sex planet. I get it now. Somebody rockin', knockin' the boots. MC Maestro says, yeah, I'm thinking about that working right now. They're helping me understand the book. I dare say that the Olympic spirits are the default pools for the mental plane that humans draw from unconsciously. I can see that. The ever pregnant. Yog Sothoth, I believe. Yog Sothoth. Oh, what was I gonna highlight? This process is repeated. Planetary, yeah. So that was good. Mother Earth. Okay, so they are all, therefore, all different in character, and the evolutions conducted exclusively upon them have each a corresponding dominant note. For instance, on a seventh plane planet, the characteristics of the seventh plane, the characteristics of the seventh plane will dominate all forms developed thereon. The prime rhythm of that plane will be the key note. All right, the characteristics of the seventh plane will dominate all forms developed thereon. The prime rhythm of that plane will be the key note. The prime rhythm of that plane will be the key note. And all subsequent rhythms will be multiples of it. And a planet upon the first plane, the prime rhythm will be likewise the rhythm of that plane. But that rhythm being a maximum rhythm, all subsequent variations will be fractions of it. And on the intervening planes, the prime rhythms will be as a decimal point. Matthew Watson says, Shub Niggurath from the Necronomicon is the same way. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, Shub Niggurath. Yog-Sothoth is actually the tree. It's the tree of life itself. The bubbling spheres and circles. That's Yog-Sothoth. Shub-Niggurath is who I was thinking of. Thank you for the correction. The goat with 1,000 young is her name. QAmp74 says, is Mother Earth and Mother Nature the same thing? Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you understand the Vedic info, we could even say Prakriti, right? Prakriti. MC Masha says, Nahima of the Clipoth comes to mind. Yeah. Okay. Making some sense to me now. Perhaps it's not our fault that humanity is entirely sex-crazed, sex-obsessed. That's literally the dominant characteristic of this planet. Because that's the one thing everybody's gonna do, regardless of what kind of body you have, what kind of species you were born into. That's the one thing across the board, if you think about it. Singh Saab says, thank you for using Vedic literature. Oh yeah, my pleasure. I love it. So you will note that a swarm in evolution on a planet starts with the same number of bodies as that planet has, and builds an additional one in the course of its evolution, thereby endowing the planet with another body until the maximum of 7 is reached. And then devolution sets in, wherein planets and sparks divest themselves of bodies. That subject will be dealt with later. You will also perceive that the order of evolution in a universe is the opposite of the order of evolution in the cosmos, because a universe is reflected from the mirror consciousness of a great entity. Okay, figure 15, let's do it. Mike's Art says, would you say that Shakti corresponds with Gaia? I would not say that Shakti corresponds with Gaia. I would say that Gaia is an aspect of Shakti for sure, just like Prakriti is an aspect of Shakti. I would say that Shakti goes beyond what Gaia represents. When we get to Shakti and Shiva, we're talking about extremely simple complementary forces. Extremely simple. And if we say Gaia, we're talking about something that's a little bit more defined, more complex, more identifiable. Shakti is a primal force, and a primal force is as unconditioned as humanly possible. I say unconditioned as humanly possible because our simple minds, our intellects, I'll say, not our simple minds, our intellect requires something to grasp onto. But truly, the highest entities have no qualities whatsoever. That's why it's impossible for most people to perceive them. So just like this book here is really teaching us how to think outside of manifestation. Because think about this, y'all. Everything we've talked about so far, none of it is objective yet. We're halfway, 33%, shit, we're halfway through the book, and we're just now getting to something that could almost be visible. So if you've been following along and understanding what's written here, you've been able to perceive the unperceivable, the imperceptible. You've been able to see unconditioned consciousness at work. Take a moment to pat yourself on the back for that. Somebody mentioned Dharana Darshan here. That book says that it's extremely difficult for people to meditate on things that has no form. It's extremely difficult for people to meditate on unconditioned consciousness because the intellect needs a shape to grasp onto. What was I looking for? Figure 15. All right, figure 15. Here we go. So what does she say about 15 and 16? You will also perceive that the order of evolution in a universe is the opposite of the order of evolution in the cosmos. Why? Because a universe is reflected from the mirror consciousness of a great entity. You see that? That should look familiar to another image that you've seen in many books. What is a phrase that you think of when you see this image, right? And what you're seeing here really is, you've got the zero at the center, that first ring, that second ring, that third ring, that fourth ring, that fifth ring, that sixth ring, that seventh ring, right? You see it moving out? Now notice as it moves across, it is reversed. It's that 7 that's on the inside, then it's wrapped around by the 6th, then it's wrapped around by the 5th, wrapped around by the 4th. 3, 2, 1. You see that? I hope that you have this book so you can see it for yourself. The cosmos, right, the big circle, has the rings from the inside being 1, then it's wrapped around by 2, wrapped around by 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But it's reversed, right? Here's the logos. The logos is the culmination of all this data that has gained a consciousness. A consciousness is now here within this cosmos, and it begins to dream inwardly. And as it dreams inwardly, it creates a reflection of existence, and that reflection is inverted. The demiurge is not your enemy. As above, so below is the phrase that I'm thinking of. As above, so below. Macrocosm, microcosm is what I'm thinking of. That's what I'm thinking when I see that right there. That's what I'm thinking when I see this image right here, right? This image, you got the tree of life wrapped around the human, the man, Purusha, Adam Kadmon. You see that? That's the same thing that's happening right here. The big is a reflection of the small. The small is a reflection of the big. Same thing right here. And get this also. Get this also. I'm going to take it to page 45. I'm going to take it to page 45. You know what time it is. Page 45. This is what I see as well. See that line right there that says microcosmos, macrocosmos? As above, so below. If you understand this chart, right? A lot of us here understand this chart. If you understand this chart, macrocosm, microcosm. Somebody mentioned Shakti earlier. The big, the dreamer, the small. So here we go again. The big, the dreamer, the small. And notice also how when you think about the soul, some people, here's one of the contradictions that people try to wrestle with. Some people think that the soul is inside, and then the lower planes wrap around it like an egg, right? We think that the body is the shell, the physical world is the shell, and the etheric plane, astral plane, mental plane, those are the innards of the shell, and the spirit is the little egg seed inside. And then there's some people who believe it in reverse, right? That the body is the center, like the yolk, and it's surrounded and wrapped in spirit, right? Like a Merkaba or like an aura, right? And they feel like the astral plane and the mental plane and the spiritual plane wraps around the physical body. Well, guess what? Both are correct. And here is how is based on perspective. If you are a human being, then yes, the spirit is inside you and your body's on the outside. Let me rephrase that. If you are a human being, the body's on the inside and the spirit's on the outside because you're being human. But if you're a god, it's the reverse. The body's on the outside, the spirit's on the inside. They're both the truth, but it depends on the perspective. In fact, whichever way doesn't matter. Just know that they both exist depending on perspective. Sheesh, how do we get here? Most High Son, peace. Aldin says, sounds like the planet has its own koshas from subtle to gross. Absolutely. Absolutely. Singh Sab says, in the Bhagavad Gita, Once Krishna called arrogant Brahma, creator of one universe, to show him thousands of others which existed, but in other dimensions. So that statement makes sense. Matthew Watson says, wow, so the Logos is the source point from all those UFO books I read a few years ago. Ardquark says, this is how light is refracted in the eye through the lens onto the retina. Okay, so that's why y'all were saying the eye earlier. Yeah, okay, so look at that. As above, so below, once again. The inside reflecting the outside. Curve, peace, my bro, peace. Justin Simmons, peace and greetings. Hope you're doing well. It's been a minute. Most High Son says, kingdom of heaven within, bring it outwardly. Precisely. Oh, what a dream. What a dream. Let's keep going. Hell, where were we? Yes, all right, that was figure 16. That was figure 16. Let me check my son real quick. Make sure he's doing well. All right. What's he doing? Framestar Films, peace, peace, brethren. Yeah, this is amazing. This is wonderful. All right, let's keep going. Here we go. So you will also perceive that the order of evolution in a universe is the opposite of the order of evolution in the cosmos. That's what we just saw. Because the universe is reflected from the mirror consciousness of a great entity. That's a key image to have, right? Truth be told, I think the most powerful line in this book is at the very beginning, which is why it's in the beginning. Because if you understand this is what we're doing, you won't struggle. The images are designed to train the mind, not to inform it. I was talking to my son earlier about the fact that the intellect, the ego, it is conditioned to learn to memorize data and grab a hold and keep it and store it in the mind so that you can go back and recall it and play this game of filling up a library full of books and trying to run and grab the right one. And that's a very difficult way to live life. We think that's what this is all about. No, this is not about memorizing words and memorizing sentences to repeat. That's absolutely not what this is about. It's about understanding the connections between them and the relationships between these concepts. That's what's important. Why? Because if you understand how relationships work, you don't need to memorize anything. You can just deduce from understanding patterns. That's what makes the Tree of Life so powerful. That's what makes the work that Dion Fortune does so powerful. These images are designed to train the mind, not to inform it. You don't need to, right? Because if all this time you're thinking she's actually talking about atoms and molecules like physical science, you know, then perhaps you're already off on the wrong foot. Because physical science and atoms and all that stuff, they behave with different laws. And that's not what she's talking about. She's just giving you an image that you can grasp onto so you can follow what she's saying. She's not talking about actual atoms from physics. She could have used any word, but that was a word that most people wouldn't question. So understand that. Understand that. Abstract movement gives rise to the forces in the cosmos. Abstract movement gives rise to forces in the cosmos. Remember, every time she says cosmos, the name of this book is what? The Cosmic Doctrine. Remember that there's the cosmos and the universe. What's the difference? The cosmos was the big circle. The universe was the little circle. Right? So when she says cosmos, that's what she's talking about. Blue and green slacks. Peace. Blue and green slacks says, is this H.P. Blavatsky? No, actually, surprisingly. Some of the same terminology as Theosophy, but no, this is not H.P. Blavatsky. You would think so with what we're talking about, but yeah, let's keep going. Abstract movement gives rise to forces in the cosmos. Abstract movement is what we've been talking about this whole time. Forms give rise to abstract movement in a universe, little circle, and thereby link themselves on to the cosmos, of which more later. Cosmos, big circle. Forms, right? That's you. That's your thoughts, your ideas, your emotions. The human mind exists by analyzing, comparing, and reacting to forms. The soul goes beyond the form into the formless. So forms give rise, right? Abstract movement gives rise to forces in the cosmos, big circle. Forms give rise to abstract movement in a universe, little circle, and thereby link themselves onto the cosmos, big circle, of which more later. So you see how that, again, as above, so below. Once again, as above, so below. It is therefore essential in a universe to have a form in order to evolve to cosmic level. Oh my gosh, the dots connect. In the mystical Kabbalah, the Unfortunate talks about how incarnation is necessary, right? When you fall down that tree and you go from being a pure spark of light and you take on conditions and conditions and conditions as you descend. By the way, this is the crucifixion of Inanna, the crucifixion of Christ and all the other crucified saviors. That light falls down into the manifest dimension, and now it's your job to rise back up, right? To ascend beyond that body, but be able to maintain the disciplined energy, right? Most people come down here, and when they pass, they scatter again, and they come back and they keep doing that until they're able to discipline that energy. So look what she says here. It is therefore essential in a universe to have a form in order to evolve to a cosmic level, thereby enabling them to link themselves on to the cosmic atoms that gave rise to them, thereby making these cosmic atoms into great entities. Thus do the atomic planes of the cosmos evolves. It's our job to create more gods and more universes. That's what we do. That's what we do. Don't ask me how long the process takes, but that's what we do. It is essential in a universe to have a form to evolve to cosmic level. Why? Because form gives rise to abstract movement. Why is that important? Because abstract movement gives rise to forces in the cosmos. See how that works? This is why you have to do the work while you have a body. This is why you have to do the work while you are in a manifested body. That's why now is the time to get your shit together. Now is the time to go within and harmonize those aspects of yourself that cause you to project your pain and suffering onto the world, that make you think that you've got this enemy to fight, that make you think that, oh, they're holding me down, and oh, my life is always like this, and da 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 da. All these different things that we say, it has to be harmonized, right? The imbalanced emotional responses, the imbalanced mental responses, the addictions. Some of us are addicted to our suffering. now is the only time you have to balance and harmonize that, to neutralize that. You're not going to be able to do it later. Because all those things those, oh my gosh, each one of these habitual patterns and unhealed trauma and all that other stuff, those are energies. Those are energy cycles, right? Those are energetic patterns. They are undisciplined. You don't have control over them. You see what I'm saying? If you're somebody with unhealed trauma, you don't have control over it. That's why it keeps repeating in your life and causing things to happen that you don't want. So that means if this body breaks and it outwears its welcome and it's finished, if the batteries run out of this body, those energies are going to fragment and go back to where they belong, right? The hatred that rules you will take that percentage of you back to hatred dimension, right? You're going to fragment apart. And you can't ascend if you're fragmented. You can only ascend if you're whole, if you're one piece. It's got to be done now. It is therefore essential in a universe to have a form in order to evolve to a cosmic level, thereby enabling them to link themselves on to the cosmic atoms that gave rise to them. Because remember, those sparks of light are the seeds of the seeds coming out of this cosmos, and thereby making these cosmic atoms into great entities. Thus do the atomic planes of the cosmos evolve. This is beautiful, man. This is what you will call basic instruction before leaving Earth. From now on, if a bot comes into the comments and says, "Is this the Bible?" the answer is a resounding yes. Yes. Basic instruction before leaving Earth. Artemis in theory, peace and greetings. My gnosis says, "God damn, Trav, this white bitch Dion Fortune. She ain't no hoe with this shit." This right here is incredible. This is quickly getting up there to being one of my favorite books. It's certainly the most fun book study that I've done on this channel, I'll tell you that. QAMP74 says, "You say we can't ascend if we're fragmented, so is being cremated a bad thing? Is that why they had mummies to preserve the body?" No, I'm not going to say that being cremated is a bad thing. I will say that hell, honestly, that could be a good thing. If you look at where some of this information came from, they cremated the body so that the ego and the spirit would know for sure that it is dead and it's time to move on. See, it's not about the body. The body is a shell, it's a container, it's a vessel to contain the work. The great work is the spirit. It's your spirit that you're working on. And you have direct access to your intellect, to your mind, to your ego. That's what you have access to right now. You might not have access to your soul or your spirit right now, but you have access to your intellect. And right now what you can do is observe your intellect. You can observe what triggers you to behave in an emotional way where you lack control. In other words, what are the words that someone can say to you to make you upset? What are the actions that someone can do to you to make you upset? What are the actions that someone can do or words that can say that can cause you to have a lack of judgment and just do things that you normally wouldn't do? What are the triggers that unlock this lack of discipline, this lack of self-control, right? What are the triggers that cause you to behave in those ways? Those are what you have to work on. It has nothing to do with the body. The body is the container, but what you're working on is the spirit. And if you don't have direct access to the spirit, you have direct access to your intellect. And once you start to harmonize and balance the intellect, it'll be a lot easier to witness what's happening beneath the surface. So QAMP74, if you're listening, let me know if what I just said made sense to you. Sheesh. Most High Son says pressure is necessary for diamonds. Fact, fact. MC Maestro says, forgot from whom, but I remember Vedic concept where the gods could only perform karmas on this plane. Shadow work, shadow work. Mike's Art says liberating energy from matter. Yes, precisely. Ooh, I like that. Aldin says, as the author of the Green Book says, become unoffendable. Right, right. Become unoffendable. And honestly, if that's not something that you are willing to do, then you don't really need to be in this information here, right? Because what are you going to do with this information if you don't even have self-control over your emotions, if you don't have control over your thoughts in your head, right? It's crucial, and it's levels to it, and it's all for your benefit. It's all for your evolution, right? Most High Son says, too much who is given, much is required. All right, let's continue. So the work must be done here. This is the secret of the God in man. He is related primarily not to the God of his universe, who is his conditioner, right? Check this out now. We're talking about the God in man, and we're talking about the creator. Look at what she says here. This is the secret of the God in man. He is related primarily not to the God of this universe, who is his conditioner, but his creator, who is a corresponding atom in the cosmos, who creates but has no power to condition, because it itself is conditioned by the great entity of which it forms a part. Look at the complex relationship between all these different fragments of one being. If you can break this paragraph down and start to understand the relationship here, you'll start to see why things happen the way they do, why you run into the people that you do, why you have the experiences that you have, and how to fix it. You'll see who's responsible for what. This is the secret of the God in man. That's one aspect, the God in man, right? That's the God in you. He is related primarily not to the God of his universe. That's the second character, right? The God of this universe. So we have a God of this universe who is our conditioner, right? He makes and changes and shapes reality. So the God in man is related primarily not to the God of this universe, who is the conditioner, but his creator, who is a corresponding atom in the cosmos. So there's a God who is conditioning reality as we see it, the dreamer. We've come to know it as the demiurge, right? And then there's a God that even created the demiurge, or I should say the dreamer, the logos, who creates. Right, so he's related primarily not to the God of this universe, who is his conditioner, but his creator, who is a corresponding atom in the cosmos, who creates but has no power to condition. Why? Because this is the dream of the logos. And the dream of the logos is the reflection of the cosmos. Remember the big circle, little circle? Because it is itself conditioned by the great entity of which it forms a part. So it's all about relationship. It's not enough to say, I am all things. It's not enough to say, oh, I am God and God is me. It's not enough to say that. There's a certain hierarchy to this. Let's keep going. But When the reflected atom of a universe develops a corresponding aspect to the nature of its creator and can thereby unite with it, oh, that cosmic atom receives into itself all the conditions of the universe, which was projected by the great entity of whose body it forms a part. And as that universe is conditioned by the great entity, the cosmic atom thus becomes a replica of the great entity, and thus, in being thus completely conditioned by it, is no longer being conditioned, but has been conditioned. And therefore, its conditioning is of the past. And therefore, in the present, the unconditioned, at present, it is unconditioned by the great entity because it has achieved a state in which it conditions itself. Ooh, I just got a reframe on unconditioned consciousness. I just got a reframe on unconditioned consciousness, and I got a reframe on ascended masters, those who sit on the level of chesed and higher. Their evolution is done. They've reached stability. Here we go at them long sentences. Let's go back. All right, let's go back. Let's make it make sense now. But when the reflected atom of a universe develops a corresponding aspect to the nature of its creator, right? In other words, when one of those atoms within the dream of the God, one of those atoms within the dream of the God, when it develops a corresponding aspect to the nature of the creator, right? Okay, so look, there is a great entity dreaming this all up. That's why we call it an illusion. We are a part of that dream. And it is, and what we are comes from a place beyond the dreamer, comes from a place more ancient, more primordial than the dreamer itself. So when we, as members of this dream, as aspects of this dream, begin to take on qualities and become more like our actual creator, let's see what happens here. When the reflected atom of a universe develops a corresponding aspect to the nature of its creator and can thereby unite with it, yoga, union, that cosmic atom receives into itself all the conditions of the universe. Remember little circle. All the conditions of the universe which was projected by the great entity of whose body it forms a part. Talk about a true hologram, right? Because now the portion contains within it all the conditions of the whole. You following this so far? The cosmic atom receives into itself all the conditions of the universe which was projected by the great entity of whose body it forms a part. And as that universe, right, little circle, as that universe is conditioned by the great entity, the cosmic atom thus becomes a replica of the great entity. Look, when you achieve that similitude and union with the nature of the actual creator, not the dreamer, not the God of this universe, but the God of the cosmos, you then become just like the God of this universe, even within its dream. It's as if you're playing a video game and you have unlocked all the cheats, right? Grand Theft Auto, you got all the money, all the weapons, all the everything. And as that universe is conditioned by the great entity, the cosmic atom thus becomes a replica of the great entity. And being thus completely conditioned by it, right? And that was the point in the first place. That's the beautiful thing. That was the point in the first place. My gnosis says game over. That was the point in the first place, for you to become as God. And check this out. Now you've been completely conditioned. There's no more conditioning to do. Once you reach that level, there is no more conditioning, no more changing, no more shaping, no more experiences to be had. That doesn't mean it's the end, like, oh, just lay down and die now, because that don't exist. Ain't no lay down and die. Look what happens next. Being thus completely conditioned by it, is no longer being conditioned, but has been conditioned. And therefore, its conditioning is of the past. And therefore, in the present, is unconditioned by the great entity. You're not going through it no more. I have arrived, as the Christians say. I have arrived. IDKDKDF, peace. IDKDKDF says the character in the game with cheats is still in the game like everyone else. Absolutely. Is no longer being conditioned, but has been conditioned, and therefore its conditioning is of the past, and therefore in the present is unconditioned by the great entity. Unconditioned by the great entity, because it has achieved a state in which it conditions itself. New paradigm. And so is independent. It is made free of the cosmic planes, is no longer held in bondage to the service of a great entity. That's the difference, right? It is made free of the cosmic planes, is no longer held in bondage to the service of a great entity, but by means of this attachment of an evolved atom of a projected universe, it is raised above the status of the atoms of its plane and becomes, in its turn, a traveling atom, and together with its attached divine spark of the reflected universe, it makes the rounds of the rays of the cosmos, and thus, in its turn, becomes a great entity and develops a universe. That's the point. That's the point. You're going through all this, being conditioned for a purpose with a point, to become like the Most High. And then to actually become the Most High. But you know, just like when you turn 18, your parents might kick you out. Everybody's house is different, but you know, I ain't taking care of no grown-ass man. Once you become a man yourself, you move out and get your own house, right? That kind of thing. The matrix will continue, right? But you get squeezed out of it. And more than likely, you're going to do more of the same. This is the goal of the evolution of every reflected atom in a universe. Of every reflected atom in a universe. Right? Bobby Hemmett said, don't worry about these folks. Everybody's gonna make it out. Don't worry about them. In due time. Now, ain't no telling how long that time is, but in due time, everybody's gonna get here. You'd be surprised how long it took for you to get to where you are today. I don't even want to know how long it took me to get here. As hard-headed as I was in this manifestation, growing up, I don't want to know how hard-headed my soul was, my spirit was, growing up. So I know I took some major L's. And that's fine. Here we are today. Here we are today. So this is the goal of the evolution of every reflected atom in a universe. To develop a divine spark. To develop a divine spark. To complete the evolution from the human to the divine in a reflected universe. That's the point of a matrix. That's the point of an illusion. So you can understand how it works. So you can learn the rules. Right? So you can go through this thing to be this thing, to make this thing. You say you can do it better? Okay, learn all the lessons and then do it better, right? One great way to learn how to be a great manager is to have terrible managers. Y'all ever learn that lesson? You ever have a horrible manager? And you know exactly what not to do when you get there. To complete the evolution from the human to the divine in a reflected universe, and to unite with its cosmic creator, thus enabling the cosmic atom to evolve through the phase of a traveling atom into a great entity. What's the story that you're telling yourself? What's the story you're telling yourself about God? What's the story you're telling yourself about whatever you're calling it? This most high entity. What's the story you're telling yourself about it? Does it sound anything like the story that you tell yourself about your parents and your caregivers? The answer is more than likely going to be yes. Because what other example would you have to draw from? What other example would you have to draw from? You more than likely see God the same way that you see your parents or your caregivers subconsciously. And if you don't think that that's the best story to have, well, maybe it's time to rewrite it. It don't cost you nothing but time and effort. The real David Goodlow. Thank you, my brother. David Goodlow says, thank you for your dedicated study groups. My pleasure, honestly, because I'm studying too, right? And, you know, we've all been in this world for a minute. There really ain't nothing else that has more value or substance than this work. I mean, you know, I'd love to be playing Fortnite, but this is more important. I'll play Fortnite later. Or maybe following the rhythm of Mother Earth. But no. Even that starts to lose its shine after a while. Bum. Framestar says all this source energy filtered through, reflected off the planetary influences that sprinkle their cosmic essence upon us, ebb and flow of source awareness washing over us seasonally. Devin McLean says, true. I remember first getting into this path and everyone is like, I'm God, whatever. It took years to actually develop an understanding and move from the naive ego sense to a deeper one. Facts. And Amalia says it's like physical experience is the way to get your mental experience up. Then you get to level up. Yeah. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. So, where are we at with it? Where are we at with it? Are we here or are we here? We're here. Okay, so it is this scheme of evolution which we are now considering. These last details have never been revealed before. Human thought has never before passed beyond the conditioning logos. But it is now revealed that though the logos is the creator of an universe, each atom in that universe is separately created by a separate cosmic atom, which aspires by means of that reflected life to achieve a state whereby it can continue its own evolution. Therefore, it can be said of man that by eating of the tree of knowledge, they should be as gods. It is this knowledge which has been withheld on the outgoing path of evolution, lest souls should be tempted to turn back and forestall their goal. But to those who passed the nadir, it can now be revealed. For those of you who finished reading Handbook of the New Paradigm, it can now be revealed. Hee hee hee. I want y'all to consider something as well, right? Let's just play with the idea and assume that this is the truth and that's what's actually happening. Let's just play with that idea that every spark of source atom will become a god in its own due time, and will create its own universe in its own due time. Let's just say that that's the case. Now let's shrink down to human being level and think about religions and how we say, oh well, ultimately these Judeo-Christian Islamic gods are keeping us contained like cattle and feeding upon us and this, that, and the third, right? Oh, the God is tricking us and keeping us like pets and using us as slaves and whatever the conspiracy theory is people have. I'm willing to wager that no, that's not a reality. Like, there is no evil God that's feeding on people. I'm starting to think that that is one of the many stories that people tell themselves and believe in that has created some type of archetype, some type of thought form that people feed, right? That people willingly feed. You choose to believe that and follow that. But that's not the actual reality. You choose to be stuck there for that experience. Is there really an evil deity that's punishing you and feeding upon your pain and suffering? Absolutely not. However, as human beings with our imagination and being sparks of God ourselves with the power to create, if that is what our unconscious soul needs for its evolution, then that's what it will serve itself on a platter. But I'm telling you, I don't think there's a devil out there with a pitchfork. I don't think that there's some evil Judeo-Christian Islamic God, Allah person that is tricking its people into servitude. I don't think that exists. That's a story. That's a story. And people who choose that, they need something to fight. That's their medicine. That's what they need for evolution. They need a villain. I'm at a level where I don't need a villain. What's that quote say? It says, if you have somebody to blame, you're not there. If you blame yourself, you're halfway there. But if you realize there is no one to blame, you made it. I don't need no enemies. I had a consultation earlier today, and I told her, just because somebody considers you an enemy, that doesn't mean that you have to consider them an enemy. In my universe, in my story, there are no enemies. I don't even make a space available, an option available for that. That's not even a possibility. Maybe in your story, but hey, if that's what you need to evolve, then by all means do it. Just make sure you do it far away from me. Lovely. Lovely. Here you go, QAMP74. NOS is what I was drinking. All right. IDKDKDF says cosmic universe atom. Is that an accurate order? Absolutely, right? Cosmic is the big picture, universe is the reflected picture, and atom is what's inside the universe but has its origin in the cosmos. Peace, Most High Son. Have a good evening. Thanks for joining. IDKDKDF says, what's the opposite of an enemy? I'd have to say it's a savior, a hero. That would be the opposite of an enemy. And even hero worship is projection, right? There are some things that we might not believe that we're capable of, so we celebrate those who are capable of doing that. It's all projection, right? And we can't project anything that isn't inside of us. So if you see it in the world, that means it's you. Which is why every relationship that you have is a reflection of something going on within your unconscious mind. You don't have to agree or admit it, but you wouldn't be experiencing it. You wouldn't be able to recognize it, right? You can't see what you don't know exists, right? People come in the chat, what is this? Right? Oh, this is evil. This is satanic. Right? You're only seeing what's in you. Them words don't cross my mind when I look at this information because I know what I'm looking at. If you don't know what you're looking at, you don't see anything. Likewise, if you see something, it's something that you recognize that's within you. So truly, if you've got people in the world that you consider as an enemy, look within yourself and ask why. What is it about that person that triggers you to feel a kind of way? That causes you to lose control and surrender to that person's will? What makes you do that? And how do you want to heal that? And what's the first step to healing that? Good music, huh? Okay, chapter 16, evolutions of the Lords of Flame, form and mind. Look, speaking of Lords of Flame, form and mind, I'm about to make myself a cup of hot coffee. So give me about 180 seconds. I'm a BRB. I'm a BRB. How we doing? Y'all still awake? 11:11. 11:11. That's what time it is. Y'all still good? Hell, are y'all still here? Is there a sports ball game tonight? Is there a round of fisticuffs happening tonight? Did you catch the sports ball game? What's the score? All right, let me get some coffee creamer and check on this little boy. Give me about 2 minutes. Very happy that my son is self-sufficient. He doesn't require too much. But, you know, that doesn't stop me from giving what I can. All right. Children. All right. Where are we at? Unicorn coffee. You see this? You see this? Electric unicorn. Fruity cereal. Fruity Pebbles. Unicorn skeleton coffee. Amazing. Amazing. I feel like the universe produced it just for me. Literally. That's what we're gonna do. Hot fire. All right. Let's see where we at. Hazard Pie still awake. J. Bald Hale says strong. Dr. Strange. Richard Tracy says, hell yeah, better than good. That's what I'm talking about. Aaron Lawrence says, please, what is it? David Goodlow says, 2211, chez moi. All right. Fat Tony says 1010. Are we all across the United States? Hell, we across the transcontinental. I see my UK folks are still wide awake. Bless your heart. Have you tried the lasagna? It's my favorite. Monica Lewan says, doing great. The best thing going on a Saturday night is right here. Sheesh. Amen. AZW, peace, my fellow cyclomates. Gifted Queen says, love that. It's delicious. Aboriginal Con 999 says, so we basically living inside the dreamer's dream. And we are co-creators in this dream until we evolve. Absolutely. That was well said. Yes, that's where we are at so far in this doctrine of a cosmic nature. Absolutely. Sunshine Chick says, it must be something with the unicorn themed coffee. The unicorn blood coffee I drink is banging too. Shoot. Something about it. MC Marshall says, gonna stay for a while, but gotta meditate. I understand. Hazard Pie, 416. Jeez Louise. 417. Okay, all right. Coffee's done. Let's get back to it. Does the name Spanky Johnson ring a bell? Who? Does the name Spanky Johnson ring a bell? Who? You dropped the bomb on me, baby. Hazard Pie says, I wake up to listen. Wow. That's cool. You're doing something real here. All right, here we go. Chapter 16. Veronica Archaga says, I am still caffeinated. Oh, I had to get right. All right. So, Chapter 16, Evolution of the Lords of Flame, Form, and Mind. Anna Molly says, just filling the bath now, gonna listen from the tub. Oh, you're gonna sink right into the subconscious. Hell yeah. We are now in a position to reconsider in greater detail the evolution of a divine spark. Yes. Yes. That's what I've been waiting on. That's what I've been waiting on. Let it be noted, to begin with, that the first swarm of divine sparks differs from its successor in many respects. To begin with, the first swarm is composed of the traveling atoms of the universe. Figure 16, do we remember that? What was figure 16? 12, 15, 16. Okay, so figure 16 was the one with all the layers, Seventh plane. And after one builds an archetype and leaves, the next group comes in, follows the same patterns, and builds a second archetype on the lower plane, graduates, then the next comes through, builds a third layer, right, a third body, leaves, and that process continues until we hit the seventh. Ooh, it's about to get real tonight. This is what we've been waiting for. Richard Tracy says, yo, I don't know what just happened, but it feels like my crown chakra just had fireworks go off with that line. We about to get into something. Framestar Film says, this is the cosmos that seeded and sparked her mystical Kabbalah atom. Ah, I see what you did there. All right. Most High Son says, your walk, not my walk, but we going somewhere. I heard that. So let it be noted, to begin with, that the first swarm of divine sparks differs from its successor in many respects. To begin with, the first swarm is composed of the traveling atoms of the universe. Secondly, these divine sparks are subjected to no other influences than those of the Logos itself, right? So the first round, they're coming through, and everything that they do sets the precedent. They set the framework with their behavior, right? The original souls, right? So they're subjected to no other influences than those of the Logos itself and those of the great entity itself. Because satellites not having been developed, they are not exposed to the influences of the planetary spirits. So that first round, they're here being themselves, which they're pure, so there's not much of a self to be, but they're not being influenced by any outside, right? Therefore, the sparks of the first swarm have the divine image impressed on them in all its purity, unblurred by other influences. That's key. There is an absence of, matter of fact, yeah. Divine sparks are subject to no other influences other than the Logos itself. I'm going to meditate on that. I'm going to meditate on the first wave, the first class, the first swarm of Mother Earth. Therefore, the sparks of the first swarm have the divine image impressed on them in all its purity. I like that too. There is an absence of cross currents in the influences which play upon the first swarm, which causes them to attain to the divine ideal, with much less stress and effort than their successors. There is an absence of cross currents in the influences which play upon the first swarm, which causes them to attain the divine ideal with much less stress and effort than their successors. So it's easier for that first round to reflect the divine, because hell, they just came from there. In their composition, the influences of the cosmos predominate. Each subsequent swarm, however, performs its evolution in a more highly evolved universe. And it's more highly evolved because this whole thing is moving, right? By the time the new swarm comes, everything has moved. right? So each subsequent swarm, however, performs its evolution in a more highly evolved universe, and therefore the influences of the cosmos find a potent rival in the influences of the universe. Oh, this coffee is so good. What a treat. Another point in which the evolution of the first swarm differs from the evolution of any subsequent swarm is this. The first swarm gathers the material out of which their bodies are made from, the undifferentiated atoms of the plane on which they evolve. They thus carry on these atoms with them to the next globe of their evolution, and so on throughout the planes. Look. Another point in which the evolution of the first swarm differs from the evolution of any subsequent swarms is this. The first swarm gathers the material out of which their bodies are made from the undifferentiated atoms of the plane on which they evolve. They thus carry on these atoms with them to the next globe of their evolution, and so on throughout the planes. Ooh. So what that mean? And so on throughout the planes, so that upon each globe upon which they evolve, the potentialities of reaction corresponding to all the planes above it in the universe are established by the methods previously explained. Oh my gosh. What is figure 19? Oh Lord. I wasn't ready for this one. Hopefully this paragraph, this chapter will break this down in great detail, because I'm gonna keep it real with you. I have no idea what the hell I'm looking at. Let's see, globes, planes, flame, logos, right? Logos up here. The work of the lords of flame. Here's form. Ooh, looks like it dips down. Whoa, I've seen something similar, I think. And stalking the wild pendulum. We might definitely have to read that. Okay, let's keep going. The emanations of the logos. This chapter will make that image make sense for us. All right, so that upon each globe which they evolve, the potentialities of reaction corresponding to all the planes above it in the universe are established by the methods previously explained. These divine sparks, thus passing down the planes, leave behind them a series of archetypes. And when they pass back up the planes by a method to be described hereafter, yeah, because we're going to need to know that, they become the powers and potencies who conduct the evolution of their successors. These are the lords, the principalities, the regents of whom you have heard. Cool. Now we're getting to the powers and principalities in high places. You ever heard me talk about a book called The Regents of the Planets? Regents? It's a relatively it's an out-of-print book. Ophiel suggested it, and it talked about these planetary spirits. And at the time, I was like, this doesn't really align, but I'm going to definitely have to go back through that one. And look at how the first round continues to evolve, and they eventually become the lords and the ascended masters of that path, directing and influencing those who come down the path after them. That's pretty nice, isn't it? It's a chain of command. We talk about ancestors and stuff, right? These divine sparks, thus passing down the planes, leave behind them a series of archetypes. Those are your ancestors. And when they pass back up the planes by a method to be described hereafter, they become the powers and potencies who conduct the evolution of their successors. These are the lords, the principalities, the regents of whom you have heard. Neato burrito. The method of evolution of the subsequent swarms differs from those of the archetypal sparks. All right, so how the swarms that come afterwards, they differ from the first. The logos, having received from the archetypal sparks the concept of their evolutionary achievement, right? So look, they run the race first and they complete it, right? That first round, they go through the whole shebang, they beat the game, they set the standard, right? They're not new to this, they're true to this. And after setting that standard, right, they caught God's attention. Remember before the logos, when those archetypal sparks first came and started doing their thing, the logos was like, wow, this is something new. I'm going to focus all my attention on these new sparks, right? Remember that? So once they finish their race and get to a certain level, what they have created and completed becomes imprinted, right? The logos is like, all right, so anyone else who comes through me that is like y'all, this is the standard that they have to achieve. These are the milestones that they have to accomplish. These are the life lessons, right? These are the patterns that I'm going to imprint upon them. So that's pretty cool, right? They come through and they change the game. The logos, having received from the archetypal sparks the concept of their evolutionary achievement, impacts this upon the divine sparks of the second swarm by the method of vibration previously described, so that they start out on their evolution with the innate capacities for reaction laboriously built up by their predecessors, and find themselves under the influence of a sphere of forces which the activities of the atomic portion of their predecessors formed into the sphere of a satellite. All right, y'all get that? It's pretty self-explanatory. Ish. Ish. This is why human beings have opposing thumbs. This is why we all are born with 2 legs, 2 arms, head standing up on a neck, though your 2 kidneys here next to the spine, your heart over here on the left side, right? Different races with the noses looking this way and lips looking that way and hair follicles looking this way, right? Because these are patterns that are carved into the etheric. Hell, deeper than that, they're carved into the causal plane. And we start to develop in certain ways because the standard was set a long time ago. And we're still under the influences of those forces which set the standard. This is interesting. They, in their turn, collect shells of the matter of the plane about their vortices in the course of their evolution. But there is this point of difference, that they have not got to build a group mind out of their consciousness. Okay, so they didn't get to build a group mind. They have merely got to attune themselves to one which already exists. They have got to become at one with their sphere, which includes the influences of a previous swarm, as well as their own swarm, and not merely at one with themselves. Ouch. All right. When this atonement is achieved and the Logos has contemplated the result and turned inwards to his subjective meditation, these sparks do not continue in the sphere of the satellite as did their predecessors of the first swarm, but the logoidal attraction being withdrawn, the mass of the globes upon the next plane attracts them. and they are disengaged from the centripetal forces of the globe on which they are, and pass onwards. Upon the next globe, they take up the next phase of their evolution in precisely the same way as their predecessors. Again, recapitulate their predecessors' behavior up to the point of departure to the fifth plane globe. Here, a change occurs. The second swarm, having arrived at the second globe of their evolution, do not pass on to the third immediately, but are now exposed, the logoidal attraction being withdrawn into the subjective state. They're now exposed to two sets of planetary influences, those of the first and third globes, the first swarm always keeping a globe ahead of them. They are therefore pulled two ways, and this conflicting influence is sufficient to overcome the attraction of the individual atoms for their atomic shells. The atomic shells then fall to pieces and return to their original condition as atoms of the plane of which they belong. But though they are freed from the influence of the divine sparks, they are immediately caught up by the influence of the forces of the sphere in which that evolution has taken place, and are retained therein. So we were talking about planetary spirits earlier, and this makes me think that, okay, so perhaps working with a planetary spirit isn't just connecting with the archetypes that some previous life forms left behind. Perhaps what we're communicating with when we work with planetary spirits are the divine sparks or the souls that currently inhabit that sphere, the collective consciousness of the sparks that currently inhabit that particular planetary sphere. Because we're kind of connected on this chain of command, right? Aboriginal Con 999 says we are the second swarm on this plane. I'm not so sure if we're the second swarm. I think that's just what she's describing so far. I don't think we're the second one. We'll see though. I'm not sure. Framestar Film says, I wonder what answers might be presented when asking questions based on this info through a tool of divination like the tarot. Peace, the second chamber. The second chamber says, is it a chain of command or phase of evolution? Yeah, phase of evolution would definitely be a better word. Phase of evolution, not a chain of command. Thank you. Okay, all right, let me keep going. I figure if I read through it, answers will begin to present themselves. Okay, so thus, upon the sixth plane, a planetary spirit will have not only the sixth plane atoms held along its lines of forces, but also the seventh plane atoms shed by the divine sparks. A planetary spirit, be it noted, is really the group spirit of the life that evolves in its sphere. Okay. Yes. A planetary spirit, be it noted, is really the group spirit of the life that evolves in its sphere. All right, I came to that conclusion just before that line. The divine sparks that are thus robbed of their atoms are reduced to their original state of a seventh plane atom attached to a divine spark. And in this state, consequently, re-enter the sphere of the manifesting of the unmanifest. Okay, that's what I forgot, right? So these traveling atoms that don't find a home, they make it all the way back to their point of origin, and they witness the door, right? They witness the alchemy. They witness the process of the God mind transitioning unmanifest into manifestation. Like, they see it happening, and that's what makes them different. I forgot about that. Yes. Y'all remember that part? The divine sparks, they travel all across the cosmos, not finding, and all across the universe, not finding a place to rest or resonate at. So they bounce off the ring past naught, and by the time they make it back to the center, this time with all of their conditions learned, they witness God face to face. They see the process of God creating something from nothing. Remember that? I forgot about that. So let me read that again. The divine sparks that are thus robbed of their atoms are reduced to their original state of a seventh plane atom attached to a divine spark. And in this state, consequently re-enter the sphere of the manifesting of the unmanifest. That's what that's talking about. Which, in a universe, the small circle, corresponds to the central stillness of the cosmos. And therein, they receive anew the impress of the logoidal image, plus the fruits of the evolutionary achievements of the archetypal sparks. The archetypal sparks being always a plane ahead of their evolution. Yo, okay. So even though they lose a body, they retain what they've learned habitually, energetically. They retain the patterns that they've learned. And one of the patterns is how to create something from nothing. So it's almost as if they are a collection of data, like living libraries of consciousness, like not human book knowledge, but how the universe works, like floating collections of intelligence that understand how the universe works. It doesn't look like anything. It's something that has to be felt. We can't see it. We can't even draw it. You see those charts she's got in the back of this book? I don't like flipping back there because I don't know what the hell I'm looking at. This is cool. Okay, let me go back to this one because I feel like I didn't really get it. But after remembering that, I'm going to come back to this. Okay, so upon the next globe, they take up the next phase of their evolution in precisely the same way as their predecessors. Again, recapitulate their predecessors' behavior up to the point of departure to the fifth plane globe. Here, a change occurs. The second swarm, having arrived at the second globe of their evolution, do not pass on to the third immediately, but are now exposed, the logoidal attraction being withdrawn into the subjective state. They're now exposed to two sets of planetary influences. Those of the first, the one behind them, and the third globes, the one ahead of them. The first swarm is always keeping the globe ahead of them. They are therefore pulled two ways. So they reach the state of evolution, and they're being pulled towards their previous incarnation, right? They're being pulled towards where they came from, and they're being pulled towards where they're attempting to go. They're being pulled two ways. And this conflicting influence, right? This conflicting influence is sufficient to overcome the attraction of the individual atoms for their atomic shells. So that pull is strong enough to rip apart the shells that these sparks have gathered throughout their travels. The atomic shells then fall to pieces and return to their original condition as atoms of the plane to which they belong. But though they are freed from the influence of the divine sparks, okay, we're talking about the atoms here, yeah. Though these atoms are freed from the influence of the divine sparks, they are immediately caught up by the influence of the forces of the sphere in which that evolution has taken place, and are retained therein. So in this case, if they're on the second sphere globe, that's where those atoms will drop now. So they've been carried from the previous. Philip, peace, peace. Okay, thus upon the sixth plane, a planetary spirit will have not only the sixth plane atoms held along its lines of force, but also the seventh plane atoms shed by the divine sparks. Right? All right, I kind of get it. I kind of get it. A lot better than before. All right, let's keep going. So, the second swarm sparks always start out on their new round with the potentialities of reaction and an additional plane. As they pass out through the phases, they therefore gather about them the matter of each plane as they pass through, forming it into concentric shells, as has been previously described, until they arrive at the fifth plane. There they build up a shell of the fifth plane matter with the influence of the fifth plane planet, and repeat the process of assimilation to the group mind, the shedding of the shells, and the return to the center. Zaire Anu, peace, peace. Anamali says, reminds me of the idea that black holes turn matter back into data. Some info is ejected from black holes. Framestar Films says they get to wear accumulating clothes, veils of influence of planetary colors, flavors. Most High Sun says they slow down in frequency. Coming down here broke down atoms. Anamali says, I just imagine most of the original matter and energy is in black holes by now. It will now be perceived that there is a fundamental difference between each swarm. The first swarm is engaged solely with magnetic action and reaction and vibrations. And they are called, in the technical terms of occultism, the Lords of Flame. The second swarm are concerned with the building of matter into the form of the planetary spirits, and they are called the Lords of Form. We will now deal with the third swarm. They issue forth, as before, seventh plane atoms stamped with a logoidal image of a more evolved type than either of their predecessors, because the logos has evolved by means of the evolution of their predecessors. They proceed to the planetary sphere of the seventh plane, and herein the difference of their evolution from their predecessors becomes apparent, for they do not collect the matter of the sphere to form a body, but use only that matter which is under the influence of the planetary spirit, in whose sphere they are evolving. And as this matter is accustomed to react to an ensouling divine spark, it is much easier to manipulate than the matter of space. Therefore, evolution is more rapid. But as these divine sparks cannot advance to the globe beyond that which they are... Therefore, evolution is more rapid. But as these divine sparks cannot advance to the globe beyond that upon which they are evolving, until the preceding swarm has moved on, they are compelled to remain upon the globe of their evolution after they have exhausted its possibilities of reaction, and the superabundant energies to whom the evolving channel is closed make play among themselves. This is the first instance of free will within the cosmos, and its resultant activities, building individualized reactions into atoms, is called epigenesis. It's called epigenesis. This is the first occasion on which the atoms are differentiated one from another, and this leads to the applying to the swarm of the name Lords of Mind. because individualized experience is the basis of personality. It's getting more and more personal with each chapter. So they only use matter which is under the influence of that particular planetary sphere that they're evolving on, and it's easier to manipulate them than to manipulate space. So evolution is more rapid. However, they cannot advance to the globe beyond the one they're working on until the preceding swarm has moved on. So they're compelled to remain upon the globe of their evolution until after they have exhausted its possibilities of reaction. So hell, maybe we still here because we waiting on somebody else to finish up. Someone ahead of us. Interesting. Let's keep going. It will here be seen that a new evolving principle is introduced, which is that the checking of progress in one direction by preventing it from becoming more elaborate upon the original type, lifts or sublimates it to a new aspect. If, however, the checking be too long continued, it would cause it to revert to a more primitive type. This, however, cannot occur at the present phase because the synthesis of forces upon these planes is perfect, but is merely referred to in passing in order that the correspondences may be seen. Okay, let me read that again. It will here be seen that a new evolving principle is introduced, right? So a new evolving element, a new evolving principle is now introduced, which is that the checking of progress in one direction, right? So this new tool of evolution is to check the progress in one direction. How? By preventing it from becoming more elaborate upon the original type, lifts or sublimates it to a new aspect. Okay, so now at this level, before evolving to the next stage, it has to be checked, right? It has to be tested. Tested by preventing it from becoming too elaborate. We want to evolve, but not too quickly, not too much too quickly. If, however, the checking be too long continued, right, it would cause it to revert to a more primitive type. This, however, cannot occur at the present phase because the synthesis of forces upon these planes is perfect, but is merely referred to in passing in order that the correspondences may be seen. Aboriginal Con 999 says quality control. There we go. That's exactly it. Quality control. No cutting corners, no sneaking in back doors. No diddy. The process of evolving a new aspect of a checked force is called sublimation. Sublimation, that's a word that appears many times in the mystical Kabbalah. The process of evolving a new aspect of checked force is called sublimation. The process of returning to a simpler type of evolution is called degradation and is always harmful because the capacities of reaction acquired at a more advanced level cannot be controlled or checked by the governing forces of a more primitive state and develop an extreme individualism, thus breaking up the synthesis of force on the plane on which they find themselves. there's a lesson here. There's an image here. Let me try to squeeze it out. The process of returning to a simpler type of evolution is called degradation. All right, so let's picture one of these atoms going through the evolutionary process. We've been through phase one, right? Set an archetype, set a pattern, set a standard, carved out a path where habits and patterns can be learned and adopted at a faster rate. The second squad goes through, they learn, they continue, they evolve, they gather particles, they leave particles, and they move on. Now the third wave comes through. The work to be done is pretty clearly laid out. They're doing their thing. They're feeling the pull of the future and the pull of the past, right? They're also being checked and tested so that they don't evolve too quickly. Now, she said that you don't want this checking process, this quality control to go on too long, right? Because then these sparks might devolve or degrade, right? So she said the process of returning to a simpler type of evolution is called degradation, and it is always harmful because the capacities of reaction acquired at a more advanced level, right? So when we talk about intelligence and evolution, what we're really talking about is the consciousness gaining more capacities of reaction, right? A dog only has so much capacity for reaction. It can only do so many things. A plant only has so much capacity for reaction, right? How many things can a plant outwardly do? Right? Yeah, it can take in sunlight and turn it into nutrients and everything, but I mean, it can't move. It's stuck in place. It can only grow up or grow down. Can't really defend itself or any of that. Right? We're ranked by our capacity for reaction to our environment. Right? So look at what she says about degradation and returning to a simpler type of evolution. It's always harmful because the capacities of reaction acquired at a more advanced level cannot be controlled or checked by the governing forces of a more primitive state. So imagine if you devolved right now from being the human, if you degraded down to, I don't know, what if you turned into an actual monkey or something, just for example, you turn into an actual monkey, yet you still possess the capacities of a human. You're just in monkey land surrounded with monkeys, and you possess the capacity of a human. Think about that. A human trapped in a monkey body in monkey land. The problem with this is that the capacities of reaction acquired at the more advanced level, it cannot be controlled or checked by the governing forces of a more primitive state. So the monkey land archetypes don't have a quality control process for a human-brained monkey, right? So that would literally cause chaos in the whole bunch, the whole group, right? It would develop an extreme individualism. Your mind and consciousness right now in a monkey body, you're going to be trying to talk to folks. You're going to be trying to wear clothes. You're going to be, you're going to know exactly how to get into somebody's house and take the Frito-Lay chips. You're going to cause too much variation in the whole program. It'll be too much of an anomaly, right? You'll develop an extreme individualism, thus breaking up the synthesis of force on the plane on which they find themselves. Interesting. You will, of course, perceive that it is the same type of process which sets free a traveling atom for its evolution to a higher state of existence. But a traveling atom has completed the circuit before it undergoes this experience and may be termed the child of the cosmos or the universe. I think that's the occult name for the universe tarot card, if I'm not mistaken. Ooh. Minosis says, is that a Christ figure? Interesting. Hazard Pie says they would attack you as a threat, probably. Right. And you know, I think there's even a mythology about this. That's what Sun Wukong was. Sun Wukong. All right, let's continue. You will of course perceive that it is the same type of process which sets free a traveling atom for its evolution to a higher state of existence. But a traveling atom has completed the circuit, right? A traveling atom has gone to the edge of the ring past not and come all the way back and witnessed God in the process of creating and transmuting nothingness into somethingness. We saw that. So that's what makes the traveling atom special and different, right? She says, but a traveling atom has completed the circuit. We've been there and done that. The traveling atom has been there and done that before it undergoes this experience of being set free to evolve, and may be termed the child of the cosmos or the universe, as the case may be, born at full term. And the regressive or degraded atom is born out of due time and abortion. If it lives at all, it lives as a monster. This is the origin of certain types of devil. Ooh. I mean, shit. If you had a human consciousness and a monkey body, yeah, that would be an abomination for real. Hell, you wouldn't be able to communicate with the other monkeys. If they don't kill you, they would certainly banish you. Have you ever been hated or discriminated against? I have. The regressive or degraded atom is born out of due time and abortion. If it lives at all, it lives as a monster. This is the origin of certain types of devil. My human curiosity wants to hear more about that certain kind of devil, but I'm pretty sure she's not going to go into that. These matters will be dealt with fully in their proper place and are merely referred to here in order that the correspondences may be seen. Fortunately, the balance at this phase of evolution we are discussing is perfectly adjusted because the influence of the Logos is the only influence in the universe. Small circle. Therefore, no such retrogression can take place among the primal swarms. No such retrogression can take place among the primal swarms. It is to epigenesis in a transition state that we owe the origin of evil in a universe. Oh shit. Aldin says there's an experiment where they painted a chimp green and put him in with other chimps. The other chimps tore him apart, literally. Sheesh. And you know what? Maybe that right there is nature's checking response, right? Quality control. Don't the animals do that? When animals have babies that are born, you know, defective, they kill them on sight. That's what nature does. You can't take nature to court. You can't complain about it or cry it or even change it. That's literally what all these living creatures that produce offspring do. They take the ones who don't match up to a certain standard and they send them back. And you know, we as human beings do the same thing. It's just now we do it on a different level. So thus the swarms pass on. The lords of flame leaving behind them galvanic stresses of all types. The lords of form leaving behind them a sediment of atoms, which are built into great spherical shells by the galvanic stresses, so that each plane is dominated by a set of galvanic stresses which develop into a planetary spirit. And a set of the shells of the matter of other planes held into a form or body by that planetary spirit, which develop into a planet as known to astrology. Okay, now we're getting to an actual planet. But be it noted that each planet, although it ultimately possesses matter of all 7 planes, has a planetary spirit formed of the stresses of the plane on which it is. Thus, the planetary spirit of the 5th plane would be an abstract mind, and the planetary spirit of the Earth is an etheric double. The planetary spirit of the 5th plane would be an abstract mind, and the planetary spirit of the Earth is an etheric double. We have now traced the 3 primary swarms of the outgoing arc, and you will see how each carries a new factor from plane to plane. The first swarm, the Lords of Flame, do not return to the central point of manifestation until they have completed the round, have been down the planes and back up the planes, and have thus completed their evolution. The second swarm, or Lords of Form, only return to the central point of manifestation after they have recapitulated their evolution and mastered an additional plane. That is to say, in their first outgoing, they progress through 2 globes and return. In their second outgoing, through 3 globes, and so on, and return, and so on. Always following on the wake of the first swarm with those with whose evolution they synchronize. Right? So they're always following the wake of the first swarm whose evolution they synchronize. Because as soon as the first swarm has achieved a new factor, the Logos assimilates it and enters a subjective phase to do so. During that phase, as previously said, the universe is left to its own devices. The first swarm, upon its globe, settles down to stereotype its reactions, and it is the influence of that organized globe. It is the influence of that organized globe in an otherwise unorganized universe, which breaks up the shells of the second swarm in the preceding globe, and so sends them back to the central point of manifestation. Likewise, the progress of the third swarm is synchronized, because they have to wait for the second swarm to withdraw from a planet before they can advance to it. The evolution of the first swarm is slowest, because it is all original work for them. The second swarm occupy much time in their evolution because they are constantly recapitulating and gathering up and breaking in new matter of the different planes, and therefore synchronize well enough with the progress of the first swarm. But the third swarm has much of its evolutionary work already done for it, and therefore has to wait. Hence, it elaborates itself. Elaboration means differentiation, and differentiation means personality. Oh my goodness. Even though I said 11:11 when we took that break, I could have swore it was still 11 something. Framestar Film says, change your logos, change your pattern. And Amali says, she's basically saying before it got the planet body, the earthly sparks laid the tracks for the meeting points of the forces to make the body. So the soul of the planets and stars is made up the memory tracks of previous sparks. Absolutely. DB31, peace and greetings. All right, how we doing? How's everybody? Checkpoint. 212. All right, so we have just hit the halfway point, pretty much. We hit the halfway point, pretty much. Aboriginal Con 999 says, first swarms draws the image. Second swarms trace the lines of those images, and the third swarms color inside the lines. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I'm thinking about that green chimp. That sucks. No questions asked, man. Just animal instinct. Getting clapped on instinct. Tired of living life this way. Crime pay, but for how long? Till you reach your downfall. Okay, all right. Let me check this here. We can easily do one more chapter, but then we're gonna see if we can do two more. We can easily run through one more because this one's short, but then we'll do an ecology check and see if we got time for one more. All right. Wow, Framestar says 8:11 a.m. So yeah, you're probably having your coffee with me. Fat Tony 11:11. All right, I'll take that. It's 11:11 somewhere. 12:12 for me. ISIS. Jeez Louise. Hazard Pi 5:11. But those are my hours, right? I usually stay up through the night, sleep through the day. All right, let's run through number 17 while we still got this on our minds. 17, the influence of the regents upon the globes. Having traced the evolution of the Lords of Flame as far as the 7th globe, which they form upon the first plane, we will now trace the course of their return to the center. It will be perceived that by their nature they have built those systems of magnetic stresses which constitute the framework of the globes and are afterwards elaborated into planetary spirits. On their return journey, they travel back along the line of globes by which they came out. There is this difference, however. Instead of building themselves a form in the matter of that plane, they find the form already built, but they also find it inhabited by the succeeding swarm of divine sparks who are undergoing evolution thereon. Regent. Anamali says, a regent is a person who rules a country when the king or queen is unable to rule. So look, the first group, right? The first batch of sparks that created and carved the path and made their evolution and went all over the place. They made it to the edge. Now they're on their way back, right? On their return journey, they travel back along those same exact lines that they carved out in the first place. That is their link. That's their path. Hell, maybe that's our astral cord when we dream. There is this difference, however. Instead of building themselves a form in the matter of the plane, they find the form already built. But they also find it inhabited by the succeeding swarm of divine sparks who are undergoing evolution thereon. So that on the 6th globe, 2 sets of lives are being lived. The second swarm, on the outward arc, and the first swarm on the arc of returning. Ooh, look at that. MC Maestro says they can take over and or rule from the shadows. I just watched The Beekeeper last night with my son. Similar vibes. Hakeem Lamidi says, and the title is given mostly to women. I didn't know that. Okay, so check this out now. The first swarm returns, right? And they don't create a body out of the matter. They just take the bodies that are already there. But what they also find is that there is a younger swarm of divine sparks who are going through this for the first time. So the OGs have returned. Let's see what happens. The first swarm entering into the already prepared group mind have subjective consciousness. The second swarm, engaging in building a group mind, have subjective consciousness only. Therefore, they are not aware of their companions of the first swarm who also inhabit this globe. Though they live in their influence, which has the effect of imparting to the shells of the matter of that plane, which have formed about the divine sparks, the same type of vibration as the seed atoms of the first swarm are themselves vibrating to. This is the familiar phenomena of the impactation of a cyclic rhythm, including inducing a vibration. Okay. When this condition has been arrived at, the second swarm, being able to vibrate to the same rhythm as the first, becomes aware of the members of the first, but not by direct perception, but by the perception of the changes of the outermost shell induced by the presence of the first. This, however, does not occur until the end of the period of evolution, whereupon both swarms quit that planet. The second to advance to the seventh globe, and the first to return to the fifth. Okay, gosh, it's clear, but it is kind of confusing at the same time. So I'm getting this visual here. We've got this sphere. It's the sixth sphere, and it's being inhabited by a fresh batch of souls. Now that fresh batch of souls, they're on their way to the seventh. They're gonna move on up to the seventh path. But anyway, here they are chilling. They got their bodies created. They're doing their thing, but they're on a certain level of consciousness that is subjective only, right? It's somewhat limited in its capability. Meanwhile, the OGs, the first group, they have reached the limit of their travels, and now they are turning around and coming back down. And they've made it here to inhabit the same sixth sphere as this young group. Now, like I said, the young group is on its way to the seventh globe, because we're on globe number 6, right? So the young group is on the way to 7, moving up, but the first group is on their way to the 5th, moving down. But they happen to cross paths here. And the first group knows that the second group is on the same path and it's about to make its way to where they are soon enough. It knows that. And what they're doing is they're transferring information to that fresh young group through vibration. Because see, the fresh young group, the second batch, they can't perceive the first batch. They have no idea. They're not developed enough to recognize that first batch, who's already been across the universe. But that doesn't matter. The first batch is vibrating onto their aura, and they're receiving and aligning with, they're aligning together. In addition to the influence they exert upon their fellow sojourners in a globe, the first swarm have certain evolution to undergo on their own account. On their outward journey, they have collected to themselves shells of each plane, which they have not shed, but have carried out with them. And on the return journey, each shell forms a means of reaction to the matter of each plane on which they find themselves. Being capable of both action and reaction, these form vehicles of manifestation and means of perception. So since they are the first ones to go through, they don't shed their atoms that they've gathered on each plane. And the atoms that they gather on each plane react accordingly. In other words, this is just for discussion. This is not literally what it means, but just for discussion, we'll say when they were on Jupiter, they got Jupiter bodies that behave in a certain way. Then they took them to Mars, right? Then got a Mars body, and it behaves in a Martian kind of way. Then they traveled to the Earth and got an Earth body. We could also say an astral body, a physical body, and we can also say that. But the point is, the first batch still has all its bodies. Therefore, it kind of has a key to all the different planes. Whereas the preceding groups, the new groups, they don't carry their bodies with them. They just carry the experience with them. Oh yeah, MC Maestro says they got a chart. Well, there we go. Interesting. So we see these layers. All right, so globe 1, globe 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Seventh globe is the last globe. Planes. The second chamber says sparks equal aggregated divine light, transitioning in a series of amalgamated orbs of energy in motion, commingling through ether and passing amidst planetary dimensions, light plus vibration plus attraction, etc. Okay. All right. Where we at? Being capable of both action and reaction, these form vehicles of manifestation and means of perception. Thus, the indwelling spark is able to act on and react to the matter of each plane on which it finds itself. And though it carried out its evolution in the sphere of attraction of the globe on that plane, it can yet extend its activities a certain way beyond the sphere of the influence of that globe. Thus, the indwelling spark is able to act on and react to the matter of each plane on which it finds itself. And though it carried out its evolution in the sphere of attraction of the globe on that plane, it can yet extend its activities a certain way beyond the sphere of the influence of that globe. This is a point whose significance will be seen later. So look, for this first group, even though they might find themselves on the third plane, they can extend their influence to any of the planes because they still have a body active on each plane. Got a safe house. Second chamber, yes. What you said so far, it is cohesive and corresponding to what we've read so far. Framestar Film says the cascading force is from the fountainhead, the same process we see in the tree across the four worlds, the pattern endlessly evolving, permutations of the original conception. Yes, yes, a true hologram. A true hologram. Wheels within wheels. Minosis says everything everywhere at once movie. What a movie. Okay, so upon each globe, upon the return journey, the sparks of the first swarm exercise their influence upon the shells that are being gathered about the sparks of whatever swarm they encounter there, right? They exert their influence upon the shells that are being gathered about the sparks of whatever swarm they encounter there. Upon the sixth globe, they meet the second swarm. When they themselves depart to the fifth globe, the third swarm advance to the sixth globe, and so on. They just miss each other. So that the third swarm is distinguished by this peculiarity: it never meets the Lords of Flame. It never encounters an evolution higher than its own, and therefore its predominating influence is that of the local. Oh, wow, that's cool. Wow, that's cool. So the reason that the second group meets the first group is because the first group is the direct evolution of the second group, which means that the third group will never meet the first because that's not their direct evolution. The second group is the direct evolution of the third group. So the third group is going to meet the second group, right? The fourth group will never meet the second group, and so on, right? She said they just miss each other, right? So the third swarm is distinguished by this peculiarity: it never meets the Lords of Flame. It never encounters an evolution higher than its own. And therefore its predominating influence is that of the logoidal image, right? The great entity, and of the production of its own epigenesis. That is why mind is so much freedom as compared with form or force. It will be seen that as each swarm meets the Lords of Flame on a different plane, or in a different, oh, now it's planet, huh? It will be seen that as each swarm meets the Lords of Flame on a different planet, it is a different shell that is influenced by them. This accounts for the differences in organization of the vehicles upon the different waves. It is a point closely connected with practical magic, because whatever body has received the impress of the Lords of Flame, that body will be used in working upon nature forces. The Lords of Form, likewise, when developing upon a globe, exert a similar influence upon their fellow sojourners there, but being peculiarly and intimately related to the matter of that globe, their interreaction with the shells of the sparks of the junior swarm is peculiarly intimate. When, however, the Lords of Mind have passed the nadir and begin to return up the globes, conditions of evolution are much complicated, because the freedom of individual action of the divine sparks has been enormously developed by successive periods of epigenesis. And in their diversity of reactions, they produce the diversity of development and the swarms they contact. my goodness. I want to keep going. I want to keep going, but I know I have to stop. But we're not too far from the manifested universe. Sheesh. No, I want to keep going, but I gotta stop. Cosmic influences. All right, so look, as usual, my advice is to go back over what we read. Go back over what we read. Like, there's a lot that I've missed because, like, I stop and kind of break down some stuff for a long time, but other times I kind of just go through. Do your study. Do your study. This is a really good book. Really good book in that it provides what it says it provides. An apprehensible concept of the origin of the universe, of the origin of the cosmos, right? Where did all this come from and what's the point? What's happening, right? This gives a comprehensive answer to those questions. Like no other book I've read. I mean, you know, Mystical Kabbalah is, I mean, hell, written by the same person, so. Please, if you're enjoying this, go back and do your own study, right? I know that a lot of you will, and I know that some people might not have confidence in themselves. Look, this is not about intellect. This is about being able to visualize this. This is about being able to play with the images that she's talking about here, right? It's not about literally understanding. Like she says in the very beginning of this book, the images herein are designed to train the mind, not to inform it. That's what the author said in the beginning of this book. So she's telling you it's not about the rational data. It's about the images that are being produced. That's what she's telling you on page 1. So go back over these pages that we read and make sure that you're getting images. Make sure you're getting these images. Let me know if you understand what I'm saying. Because, like, understanding how all this stuff flows here, you can now start to go back on the stuff that you learned previously. And I'm saying what's happening with me right now. As I read this stuff, I'm getting a new framework. A new framework. I didn't ask for a new framework, but I also didn't know that the one that I have currently is actually a small part of something even bigger, right? We don't know everything. At no point in our incarnation will we quote unquote know everything, which means that there is always more to learn. And this book has given me we call it a meta state, right? A meta state of understanding. When I say meta state, I mean, like, here I am with my level of understanding, but then there's another level of me understanding what I understand, right? And my feelings about my understanding and what I'm gonna do about then there's a meta state for that. It's meta all the way up, right? A meta state is like, right now I am wondering, right? I'm wondering, I'm curious, I got thoughts going through my head, and I'm gonna sit down and think about it. If I meta state up one level, I can be excited about my curiosity. So I'm excited about the fact that I'm curious about this information. I can meta state up again. I'm serious about my excitement about my curiosity. Does that paint a picture, right? So I take it seriously, right? I'm devoted, right? Meta state up. I'm devoted to my seriousness about my excitement about my curiosity, right? So what this book has done for me is it's let me take in what I understand about life and the meta state I have around that, which is called Kabbalah, and my understandings of Hermetic occult stuff. And I thought that right there was a good, solid network of understanding. But reading this book, it's allowing me to metastate everything that I've learned about the Vedic, the Kabbalah, all that. And it fits in here clean. It fits clean, like nothing has to be forced. Nothing has to be jammed. There's no need to jam. It's smooth. Kabbalah fits smooth with this. The Vedic information fits smooth with this. So what I'm saying, all them words I'm saying to you is to say, if you like this, if you're getting this, go back, read it again. Read it slow. Take your time. Break it down. Take your time. And when we meet again on Saturday and we hit chapter 18, you're going to come with a solid foundation so we can keep going. Because let's not be funny with this here. In the words of Bobby Hemmett, let's not be funny with this mess. This is some heavy reading. You hear me having to stop and repeat a sentence 4 or 5 times? Shit. It's because I want to understand it. I'm not trying to front and pretend, oh yeah, I get this book, it's a breeze. Shit. It's the reason I bought this book like 2 years ago and haven't read it till now. So let's not be funny with it. It's a heavy read. Sit with it. Break it down. Take baby bites. Lord have mercy.
This is Nephew Tommy with the Steve Harvey Morning Show. You just got pranked by your daughter.
Oh, Lord, that girl. Lord have mercy. This ain't me. Please forgive me, this ain't me. Brother Conley, you all right? Man, you got me using language I heard my neighbors in them using. I love Steve Harvey and Nephew Tony. I do. Brother Conley, what's the baddest? I'm talking about the baddest radio station in the land. It's gotta be. It's got to be y'all. Hell, I don't forgot the name of it now. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. All right. I'm gonna check out next time. Like I said, I'm wide awake. I still want to keep doing this, but I kind of do have to stop, hang out with my son before he falls asleep. Next week. All right? All right. May the 5th, Revenge of the 5th, Cyclomancy Round 2. Cyclomancy Round 2. And like I said before, I'm bundling it with my Shadow Work Mastery System, right? And that bundle altogether is going to be like 50% off, right? That's like a $400 class. The Cyclomancy was like $250. But I'm bundling it together and slashing the price in half because shadow work is definitely needed right now. Most absolutely certainly. And I'll tell you something else. If you're sensitive to, the development of your psychic ability, perhaps you're noticing that the level is raising for everybody across the board right now. Like the planetary psychic sensitivity is rising. And those of us who have been doing the work, we've been feeling a boost, right? Everybody who's got their ship in the water, the tide is rising and we feel it. And those people who have not been working on themselves, as this energy rises, even for them, they don't have frameworks to channel it healthy. So it's manifesting more problems. It's manifesting more suffering, right? Imagine you're already paranoid about your girl or your guy, and now you're hearing their thoughts, or you're picking up signals and trace energies, and now you're blowing up and fighting and snapping over something that ain't even really, you get what I'm saying? Like, the psychic ability is rising for everyone. So it truly behooves you to start working on harmonizing these aspects of yourself that you might be fighting and rejecting. You heard me? You heard me? And if you have no idea how to do shadow work, if you're not good at it and you want some help, I'm telling you, Now is the best opportunity to take the shadow work class. It will be bundled with cyclomancy. So hell, now you're getting shadow work and a solid framework of how to develop your psychic ability. We've already had several people take this class. And in fact, as you can see here in the chat, those students are welcome to come back for round 2. So just like what we talked about here, the atoms that have passed, the first group that came back to meet the second, you'll be able to interact with people who already been through the course and who have already been practicing and working with these techniques. Hell, that might give you a boost. But as I said, I'll promote more about these courses as the week goes on to make sure that everybody has a chance to do this if they want to. But like I said, we'll be back here Saturday. Wednesday, I'm going to do a tarot read. So tune in for that on Wednesday. Collective Energy Report. Maybe I'll come up with a cool name for that. Keep your studies and keep your momentum too. Keep your momentum. If you're somebody who is feeling this purge season come through, and you might find yourself starting to get depressed. You might find yourself starting to feel lonely. You might start to find that you feel like you don't really have something to look forward to right now. If that's you, what I'm asking you now is to pay attention to your momentum. What are you doing? What are you moving towards right now? I know that the emotional stuff is really circulating, right? And you're probably got a lot of focus on that, but what else are you moving towards? What are you looking forward to tomorrow? I know everybody's different, but for those of you who might be going through it on that level, just make sure that you've got something that you're actually working towards. And I'm talking about, this could be mundane, this could be spiritual, whatever, right? If you're trying to learn a new skill or a hobby, if you're trying to do a business, whatever. Just make sure you got something that you're working towards. Keep that momentum. Keep that. Even if you don't know what you want to do something. Do something. You hear what I'm saying? Is anybody else still here? Out of the 240 viewers, you hear me? Good stuff, good stuff. I'm satisfied with tonight's read, that's for sure. All right, y'all have a good night. This concludes tonight's study. We will resume with chapter 18, the goal of evolution of a life swarm. And I'm sure that next week we'll start getting to the manifested universe. We'll see. All right, everybody, take care. Thank you for being present. Thank you for your time, for your focus, for your energy. And I trust that the exchange was mutual, that you received for your time. For sure, for sure, for sure. All right. Love y'all. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. I love you. Peace. Stay greasy. Stay moisturized. Stay hydrated. Drink you some water. Get you some rest. If you're working too hard, have a little bit of fun. Stop judging yourself. Trust the subconscious mind. It knows. The subconscious mind is faster than you. It has access to a much wider laboratory than you, much wider knowledge base than you. Trust your subconscious mind. Make sure that you're planting seeds of the fruit that you want to grow, right? In other words, plant seeds of confidence, plant seeds of trust, plant seeds of gratitude, plant seeds of faith. What do I mean by that? Every move you make, every thought you think, every emotion that you feel, make sure that the impulse, the first part of it, is something that you want, aka not fear, right? Don't do something because you're kind of scared and you don't want such and such to happen. Make a move based on faith as opposed to fear. Framestar Film says, don't let the cheese slip off your cracker.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. You got this, right? You are who you say you are. You are who you say you are, right? And what are you saying that you are? That's the question, right? Who are you saying that you are? I want you to look in that mirror when you're driving to work or cruising down the boulevard or when you're in the bathroom passing by. Look in that mirror and tell yourself who you are. Do that. Because you are who you say you are. As long as you believe that, the environment will reflect that, right? How dare you fix your lips to look in that mirror and say some bullshit about yourself? How dare you? Plant the seeds that you want in your garden and watch them grow. And sometimes you don't even realize how rich your soil is. You might think something will take you 6 months to 6 years to grow, and it might take 6 days. It might take 6 days if your soil is rich, right? If you've been doing your due diligence, you might have some ormus and some monoatomic gold and some colloidal silver in your soil. So when you plant them seeds, not only will they grow super fast, the fruit might grow super fat. Huge ass watermelons with the seeds in them. That way you know it's not GMO, right? Grapes the size of apples, Granny Smith apples. Full of nutrients. That's what you can have if you plant that in your garden. You are who you say you are. You are exactly who you say you are. So what are you saying to yourself? Not what they say. They don't have to agree with it. They don't have anything to do with this. These other folks are literally just reflections of forces that exist within your unconscious. They are reflections. Perhaps they don't agree because you haven't told them to agree. Perhaps because they know that you don't believe you are who you say you are. So it starts within. It's not about convincing anybody. It's not about trying to get approval or validation from anybody. You got to start at first. You got to start at first. I think you know that. I think you know that. I think you know your potential, right? If you don't dream about it all the time, you at least see glimpses of it in your dreams. If it's not all the time, it's sometimes. You know who you are and who you can be. Today is the day that you really amp up the process of cultivating those fruits. Today is the day that you begin to amp up the process of cultivating these fruits. No more time to waste. It's your story. Yours. What is that best version of you? Who do you have to be to become that best version? What does that best version of you do in your daily scenarios? How does that best version of yourself prepare meals that are healthy and nutritious? How does the best version of yourself manage your budget? How does that best version of yourself react to people who seem hell-bent on making your life miserable? How does the best version of yourself react to those people in such a way that you can both heal yourself and deal with them tactfully? What would Jesus do? You don't have to suffer. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to suffer. Your story. Your story. It's your story. It's a beautiful day. Remember what you're grateful for. Remember the feeling that it gives you. And hold on to it. I did my meditations today. I did my talk with Shooty. And I saw myself reborn from the egg as a pure, bright light. And I realized I changed that sometime in the past. That was how I started it. But at some point, I redesigned it as me in a human form bursting out of this egg being reborn. That's how I've been doing it for so long that I forgot that I changed it. But today, it just happened automatically. I bursted out of this egg as a pure, brilliant light. And I felt it again. I didn't even realize that I wasn't feeling it no more. And I held on to that bright light all day long. And when I tell you, I don't know what it was, but the world was reacting to me. I mean, people literally coming to me for help. I don't want to get into it too much, but multiple people, it seems. I don't just mean online either. I mean in person. I went out my house for 5 minutes. And this woman is, giving me her life story and asking me, that there was an opportunity to help somebody, right? That light, you know what I'm saying? And it's not even like, oh, what do I have to say something perfect? Like, no, sometimes it's just that connection and that energy can transfer. Just like what she mentioned here about the first round coming back, and they share a vibration, that vibration goes off onto the new sparks. Sometimes it's just that connection. It don't even got to be special words or a deep, philosophical quote that you give them. Sometimes it's just listening. Sometimes it's just giving somebody that space. All right. I hear my son thumping and bumping. I gotta make sure that nothing is being destroyed. Y'all have a good evening. You are who you say you are.